Welcome to the EST Hangout.
This is the EST Hangout, and today's guests are...
And a good Wednesday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout live on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. Thanks to those listening on TuneIn, iHeartRadio, EdmontonSportsTalk.com, watching on YouTube, as well as everyone that listens to the podcast later in the day. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Gazzola with you here, as well as Marc Majeau from the MCTV podcast, but more importantly, friend of EST, of all of us here at EST. And Shawn Belle, we think, is going to join us today.
Belsey, hello, if you're listening on your way in.
We forgot that he's back to on ice.
Yep.
So he can't get here till about 9:20, 9:30-ish or so. But also, he just had a kid.
Yep.
So he might not show up at all.
That's
No, he'll be here.
I mean, a kid's about time management, so we're about to learn about his time management skills.
I would know nothing about having a kid or time management while having a kid, but he's very, since the birth of young Hendrix James Dean Bell.
I love Hendrix.
It is a sweet name. He has been very calm about it, and I'm like, isn't it hectic? He goes, no, you already had one. I know what it's like.
It's fair.
But Belsey's kind of like that. He's just cool as a cucumber. Nothing rattles him. Yeah.
When you're a defenseman on the blue line, you need to stay calm, cool,
Very
and collected.
true. And I think Lindsay, his wife, does God's work for that family. Yeah.
Well, yeah, from what I gather, again, like you not having the real experience.
We don't have a point of reference.
But knowing, family members who have, one is, it's the mother that's kind of what matters in the first few months.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're there as a guy just to support them and do what you need to, but there's not much you really can do.
No.
Also, I've also heard that once the second comes, you just, as each kid comes, you get less and less stress leaves you.
I could imagine that.
Yeah. Whatever. It's as the kids get older, the first kid, when they bump, it's a big deal, they fall or something.
Yeah.
Then the second one, it's he'll be fine. And the third, they don't even they don't even notice it and stuff, and so forth and so forth. Parents could correct me where I'm wrong with that one.
As a third child myself, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could just see my dad in 1992 walking in around the old house at my old parents' place, and him yelling at my brother and I, and then going into another room and seeing my youngest brother, Paulie, and being like, oh, yeah, I have 3.
There's another one you hit.
Oh, yeah, we did that.
That's the Homer Simpson. There's the point where he's like, here's the mistake. You only have 2 kids or 3 kids. I only have...
Yes.
Oh, that is... yes, we'll see how... We'll see if Belsey shows up.
He will.
Because I haven't seen him. Well, I understand that if he won't, but... We also then realized, right before the show, that he wasn't here, and then I was like, yeah, that's why he's not here. He's got hockey.
He's got
lots to get to on the show today, including the EST Flyaway presented by the 780 Keyword. We want to send you to Los Angeles Clippers, Warriors, Rams, Cardinals, as well as Edmonton taking on Anaheim or LA. Flights, hotels, car as well, December 26th, December 30th. We're qualifying until November 28th, so the keyword for the EST Flyaway to LA, presented by 780, is coming up around 10 o'clock here on the EST Hangout. You guys want to start with...
Belsey confirmed he's coming. He's listening right now.
Yeah,
Hello,
that's
Belsey.
what I figured.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It'll be a good time. Apologies to Belsey that I forgot about that. This isn't... He told me a few weeks ago that he's back to the schedule where he can't be here for the start of the show, but he will be here. And I just completely forgot about that.
Not how you start, it's how you finish.
He'll be fine. Exactly. Yeah, good point, Mark.
He's going to crush
Corey
it.
B says, yay, Mark.
It's
Hello,
not
Corey
those
B.
first 10 minutes of a hockey game.
Exactly.
It's that third period. You need to be strong.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Finish the game
Coaches
hard.
always say, right, you don't want to be scored on the last minute of a period, right? He's going to come, he's
very
going to kick
frustrating.
down the doors, and it's going to be a tremendous back half of the hangout.
Yeah.
Do we get to NFL now so he doesn't have to talk about the Dolphins later, or do we save NFL for later so we can help him work through the Miami Dolphins?
I like what chaos this might bring if we have him involved talking about the Dolphins. So I'd park it. We can talk baseball playoffs.
Let's talk Yankees.
Yeah, let's go.
Right on. This is my favorite time of year, man. Like the days with the 4 baseball games going on.
That was awesome.
MLB does such a good job at staggering the starts, so you're not trying to watch the first inning of 4 games at once.
Imagine if hockey's first round did that.
Yes.
We had games all day. They didn't start at 5, 7, and 8 or whatever. We started at noon Mountain Time, and they staggered the games throughout the first few days.
Like Wyshynski said, and the NHL obviously schedules around football and baseball and this and that, but like Wyshynski said earlier on the Nielsen show, football is going to dominate anything else that's on. So just like concede basically to it. Relax and concede. Like you're going to get your fans watching. Yes, you're going to take a hit, but just concede. So I like what baseball's doing with this.
This was always, even back pre-wild card rounds, right? When it was just the division champions and the one wild card, there'd always be that 1 or 2 afternoon games. And I was fortunate enough, I always had 1 or 2 cool teachers that would throw it on. Yeah, I'd always have a few of those, but now today with our phones and everything we have to follow stuff, it is easier to follow these games.
Totally.
So to have games on from, I think first game's at 12:30 today.
Yesterday was 12:30.
Yeah. So I think it's the exact same schedule
the same
again
today.
12:32 first pitch.
I do feel bad for the diehard, I don't know, Houston Astros fan or the Detroit Tiger fan that is stuck in an office right now, but I absolutely love it.
Tigers, it's 2:30 when they start.
that's
Right?
fair.
You got that. Astros, they didn't sell out yesterday.
Really?
Tony Kornheiser ripped them on PTI. No, it was Wilbon that ripped them on PTI. Because they're always in the playoffs, and it's like they've got like that playoff fatigue or something. They didn't show up for their team in the playoffs.
Not surprised. But that's the other thing too, is like with these early starts, or, Central Time or Eastern Time, regardless, I kind of appreciate in baseball in those cities. Yeah, I suppose you could stretch it out to the States too, depending on where you are. But like, it's a Wednesday and we have a 12:30 first pitch. I'm just going to go to the game.
Yes.
I'm not going to work. And you know what? That is okay down there.
I love the American mentality of that, where it's when they play sports, they don't have the excuses, but I got to work.
Yeah.
Like we hear that the Oilers move a game up to 6 o'clock in the evening.
I'm not going to get home.
How am I going to get there? Like I have to go to work and then I got to go home, and then there's all these complaints. Whereas in the States, it's okay. It's going to be packed.
Yeah.
When Monday Night Football heads to the West Coast and they get going at 5:20. Santa Clara or LA, those stadiums are, I say mostly packed because LA doesn't always pack everything.
It's a 100,000 seat stadium in LA.
Yeah, but they also they don't have the best fans for the NFL. They don't care about the NFL.
Good point.
But like in the end, like Seattle, they're packed.
Yes.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They will get to the game because it's game day. And they'll also tailgate still.
Yep.
That's like
Yes.
I wonder. Let's flash forward to April 2025. Oilers hosting first round of the playoffs, game 1.
Yep.
Say puck drop would be at 2:00. Would it be full?
Yep. But there would be a loud chorus of complaints.
I tend to
I
agree
would
with
say
that.
no.
No?
Not
Ooh.
for round 1. Because this past year, round 1, there was the fatigue of the LA Kings and we saw empty seats.
Oh, yeah,
That's
we
fair.
did.
We did see empty seats in the round 1.
And the prices were ridiculous.
If we
ridiculous.
if it was a different, if it was Oilers Flames, 100%.
Could play that 2 in the
100%
morning
type thing.
Yeah, good point. That's a very good point.
But if you got to, I'll say second round or later.
Yep.
Easily.
Yeah, that's
Easily
fair.
it'll be
And
sold out.
Listen,
Yeah.
I think 2:00 is probably extreme, but the NHL should get better at staggering their games, especially in playoffs. It should be 5, 5:30, 6, 6:30. You have enough variance, right, between both conferences. But watch, we'll get 4 games at 5:00 and then 4 games at 8:00.
Brilliant.
We're already complaining about playoffs and the regular season hasn't even started.
Well, but that's where it's, but again, it goes to you stagger some of these.
Yeah.
And give me that. They actually have done those later in the years. I don't think it was playoffs, but there was a couple 2:00 games or something. Mm-hmm. It was I remember seeing the Lightning taking on the Hurricanes or something 2 in the afternoon.
I love it.
Our time, and I was like, yes, give me more of this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Find a way to do that at the very least. Once you get to playoffs, because people will come out and support your team.
Yeah,
they will
definitely.
especially in the States.
The WNBA also has afternoon starts during the regular season as well. So a lot of those networks, they are still looking for programming to do,
Yeah.
right? ESPN has a bazillion channels, it feels like. So there's real estate for that, especially with streaming apps now too. You can just put things on whenever.
Yep.
I also on holidays. I wish the hockey does it with the States.
Yep.
When you get to Martin Luther King Day or stuff, they play games earlier. But they don't do it as often with the Family Day. You don't have the earlier games
that's
or
a good
something.
point.
I wish we got to the NHL is playing on Thanksgiving. I don't know if there's any matinees. this year in Canada.
Canadian Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
No.
Like, I don't know if there is. That's the 14th.
Remember they had a home opener on Thanksgiving once. It seemed very weird.
No,
That is odd.
The 14th of October.
That's Thanksgiving this year?
They actually do have the Senators playing at 11 a.m.
All right.
They also have
There we go.
the Utah Hockey Club and the Devils playing at 11, and Panthers and Bruins playing at 11. I forgot what day off it is in the States.
Columbus Day.
Is it Columbus Day?
All right.
Could you imagine? I still get jarred every time he says Utah Hockey Club. I'm like, oh yeah, Utah is in the NHL right now. We've lost 2 franchises in sports in the last 6 months. We lost the A's and we lost. I don't think people in Arizona are maybe too shook up about that, but it's tough anytime you see a fan base lose their team.
It was tough watching that last regular season
Yeah,
game
that's
between the
right.
Oilers and the Coyotes. Like
Right.
seeing the actual fans that care. Like, again, there's not a lot.
Yeah,
No.
there are some,
But there
yeah.
were some. And to see them lose their team, it was crushing. And
Well, yeah,
I remember when the Trappers left.
it's tough.
I was a little sad kid that last year of their season when they were leaving. I was mad when John Short broke the news that they were going to be leaving. When FC Edmonton left, I was at their final game. It was weird. Like, you didn't know they weren't coming back, but you kind of knew they weren't coming back. And it was a weird feeling. It's
Well,
not fun losing your team.
No.
No, it's not. I mean, the guy they hired to be their president ran them into the ground. And that was already on a bad course anyway.
Yeah, it's
Now he's running Ottawa.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is right. How do you feel about the Yankees?
I feel like if they can avoid Baltimore and Houston, they'll be in good shape. And so far, so good. They got the
Houston always has
best.
the
They got the
number.
best results yesterday. I think the Yankees are a good team. I don't think they're a great team.
Really?
I do. I think their pitching rotation will be fine if you can throw Cole, Rodon, Heel, probably Clark Schmidt. Do you see yesterday that they weren't confirming Marcus Stroman was going to be on the ALDS roster? It seems like a bit like I imagine he'll be there,
But he's in the pen
Yeah.
as an option.
So it's just shocking that one of their key free agent targets won't maybe be on the roster. But take that aside, I don't think Judge will see anything over the plate in the first couple of games. I believe whoever they face, whether it's Casey or Baltimore, will do anything they can to make sure he doesn't hurt them. And their lineup has been kind of struggling through a lot of times this season. So I think their biggest kryptonite, Baltimore and Houston, I think they could handle anyone else. So cautiously optimistic, but I think the Phillies are just going to roll over everyone.
The Phillies?
I do. That's
Really?
my
They
that's
had
my
a
World
rough
season.
second half of the season.
Yeah, that's my World Series pick. I feel
Wow.
like looking at their lineup top to bottom, they have the playoff DNA they've been kicking around the last few
Yeah.
years. I know the Dodgers are really good too, but
It's hard for me to bet against the Dodgers just
Yeah.
because of what they've built.
for sure. But you'd also figured the Dodgers have been pretty good for what it feels like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think they'd have more than one World Series over the last 10 years.
Well, in that part, you could argue in the first part of those 10 years that they got screwed out of a couple.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sorry, Norman, a combine, but they got screwed out of a couple.
Where's your garbage can now, Norm?
But you're not wrong with that. Like it's like the Stampeders. If you look back over the 2010s and
Yeah.
stuff, how dominant they were, and you look at how many actual championships they won, you sit there and go, that wasn't enough probably for
Yeah.
how good you were through the regular seasons.
Yeah.
When
I
you
can say that for the Dodgers.
when you look at dynasties we've had in all sports over the last 20 years, I feel like it's pretty accurate. Like the Patriots, 6 feels like probably the right number, right? Like they probably got a couple, maybe 1 or 2 they shouldn't have gotten, but they also
Lost a couple that they probably should have had.
I feel like 6 was the fine number. Think the Lakers early 2000s, like 3 kind of, maybe 4.
They blew it in 04.
Yeah, that was the Pistons year, right?
Yeah.
Like there's that.
Boston 5, but
I
then it
feel
was
like-
the end of Shaq and Kobe.
And that was those Pistons. Weren't those final scores like 74-68? Like
They
those
beat
were
the
rock
crap
fights.
out of the Lakers
Yeah.
and stuff.
So I feel like when we look back on some of these dynasty teams, the numbers do kind of add up, and it's just surprising that the Dodgers haven't.
Well-
and that was the 2020 one as well, too, right?
That's
So-
2020. Oh, you want to go there?
No, but I know some people do.
But
wanna
okay,
say
so West
that.
Division titles. So that's the NL West. 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24. NL pennants, only 17, 18, and 20. And only 1 World Series.
So
dominated their division from 13 to 24. The only time they didn't do it was 21. And they got as a wild card. They only won the AL 3 times. Or the NL 3 times. And then they only won it once. Now, those other 2 times, 17, 18, I believe those were both Well, one was against the Cubbies.
17 was Astros.
No, that's the wrong one.
World Series was Astros in 17. 18 was Red Sox.
Was it Red Sox? Yeah. Oh, no wonder I forgot that one. I don't watch those World Series. I stopped
that was a
watching
tough
at those
one.
points.
The Houston-Boston one was...
Yeah.
Or not just Boston.
Wasn't there. It's not good enough. But I'll still, like, when you have Shohei Ohtani...
Yeah, of course.
Like, I'll still bet on them, even though I don't want them to win.
Baseball playoffs they're my favorite playoff. Well,
It's fun. Guys actually try.
it is.
nice.
And look at the games yesterday. The Atlanta Braves, right?
Yeah.
They have to fight tooth and nail, game 162 to get in, and then less than 24 hours later, they're playing for their lives.
Yeah.
And then they lose, and now today, it's such a long season, and it's over like that.
Well, you could lose a 3-game series in the regular season, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've always keep going to 100-win season is a brilliant baseball season. Like, you're getting praised of how great
It
a
is,
season
yeah.
you are. That means 62 losses. There's a lot of losses that pile up. But now you get to the playoffs in a 3-game series where, like, you're afforded in the season a couple bad 3-game stretches all over the place.
Yep.
But you have a bad 3-game stretch here, and it's your season. It's
It's
done.
The pitchers that are taking the ball today for all 4 teams that lost yesterday, and the like how quickly you go to the bullpen, all that kind of stuff. Like it changes the way you manage your team. I am sure it changes the way you approach every at bat, saying, I don't know how many more pitches I'm going to get.
Right.
Like, it's just every
pitch
pitch
matters.
means everything, and it's so cool to watch. I absolutely love it.
Marathon to sprint. That's
Yeah.
what baseball turns into.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. This is my favorite playoffs of all the sports.
Yeah. Something about it, Tom. Every pitch matters. How do
Yeah.
you feel about the Yankees this year?
I feel like they have to win it this year because if they don't, Soto goes to the Mets, and I don't know how they pick. Like, Soto was everything the Yankees could have
Yep.
asked for this year, and then some. And we have a Padres fan, Rip City staff, who goes like, the trade for trading away Soto has made their team better.
Well, look what happened last night. Like, all the pieces from that trade helped them win last night.
And then the Yankees don't benefit because Soto has been great for them. Like, both sides have completely benefited from this Juan Soto trade.
Yeah.
From the start, Soto has been brilliant, and you have the Soto-Judge tandem, which has been probably
like-
one of the best duos you could have in baseball.
It's like Mantle Maris.
Yes.
Obviously not. Well, maybe. down
Well,
the road,
they go
but-
win, and so, but my fear is that in the end, once the season's done, he's going to go for the money as opposed to the money and taking less money but staying with chances to win a little better with the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to take the money to go to the Mets.
And you know who his agent is, correct?
Scott Boras.
Yes.
Scott Boras goes for the money.
Yes.
His
And-
clients don't sit there and be like, we'll take a $50 million off to stay here.
No, and I think Boris had a rough winter last year.
Yeah. that's a
Some of
good
his
point.
guys didn't get paid, so I think everyone involved knows what this contract is likely going to be. It's going to start probably 10 years, $500 million. That's where it starts, which is
Yeah, because what
bananas.
did
to think.
Ohtani got 7?
7.
So I think he ends at 6. I think Soto gets 6.
Damn.
Soto doesn't pitch, right?
Yeah.
So that's...
That's where he loses
Yeah.
$100 million.
And you mentioned the Mets. Steve Cohen, their owner, has $500 million in the cushions of his couch. And he's an art dealer, and guys in the art world will say, if Steve wants something, he'll buy it.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Yankees have a blank check for Soto prepared. I do think they have a limit. And then it comes down to if the Yankees offer $50 million a year, the Mets can just swoop in and say, here's 55. Here's 60. So yeah, it is a little nerve-wracking. I totally get that.
And that's where it's like, you got to go in now.
Yeah.
And go get this. I've said this in jest. Right now, just as from a Yankee perspective, to everyone else, get mad at me all you want. I don't care. This is just for Majeau here, and Joel is a Yankee fan. 09's a really long time.
It's been a very long time, yeah.
That's unacceptable largely as a Yankee fan. That how I would explain this is like back in the day with the Double E football team. We had Chris Morris on here. The expectation every year was to win the Grey Cup.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a 9-team league, but you didn't win the Grey Cup, and fans were upset. The team was upset. That's what the Yankees largely, because of their history. 09 is just a ridiculous long time, and if they don't do it now, I'm worried about Aaron Boone. I'm not an Aaron Boone fan, and I hope he proves me wrong these playoffs.
It's a tough spot because I think if they were to move on from Aaron Boone, I think they would bring in a carbon copy of Aaron Boone. By all reports, he is in lockstep with what ownership and what management wants. I think they're a very analytical team, which has its advantages, but I also think it has its disadvantages. I think the players like Aaron Boone, which I think is important, but I don't think he's doing a ton day to day, to be perfectly honest. I think he gets a lot of reports that he studies and says, here's the lineup that the computer spat out. Verdugo, go hit leadoff. which hasn't really worked out too much.
Which the argument, I don't know what a lot of baseball managers do fully throughout the season. I don't know how much impact you have throughout the season. But when playoff times comes, it's like that pitching change.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you make that pitching, like, Jays fans know it all too well in a negative way.
Yeah, of course.
Was it last year, 2 years ago, when Barrios got pulled early?
Oh, yeah.
In Seattle? Or
It was Twins, I think.
okay.
I think he was pitching so well.
He's hot.
It was like 7th inning or something, and then they pulled him. And then immediately they gave up like a couple runs, lost the game. I think that was the elimination game and stuff. That's where we've seen it with I remember the Rays in the World Series a few years back where they pulled
was it Blake Snell?
Yeah, that's who it was, and they pulled him early.
Yeah.
Well, they pulled him based on the numbers and stuff, and that's where I just could see.
Hello.
What's up, big boy?
I did like, what's Aaron Boone going to do?
Yeah.
And I just don't have confidence.
No.
And they've been close. Like the Yankees over the last few years, they've gotten to American League Championship Series.
Only
They haven't been able to go through. Now on the flip side, I could also use we got screwed by the Astros.
The closest the Yankees have gotten in the last 10 years, they lost to a team that was cheating in Game 7. So
Yes.
That's close. Hi, Sean.
Hi, how's
Shawn
it going,
Belle,
Mark?
How are you?
Wonderful. Long time no see.
It's been a while. Congratulations. I hear there's a
Thank
young
you so
one.
much.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
I made Jay a little worried on the kickoff show on Friday.
Why?
Well, because I wasn't on air all week, and he started mentioning that you had a kid. And I was like, "Is that like?" I didn't know if it was public or not. Like,
it's
because
public,
sometimes
yeah.
you wait a little bit,
Yeah.
and then he got a little worried. He's like, "Well, the boys were talking about it, but were they talking about it off the air or on the air?" And then he got really worried that
little
maybe he
seed of
spoiled
doubt.
that, like outright that no, the kid has come, and then people were texting him like, "No, Belsey texted in the name to the morning boys and stuff."
Yeah.
So, but congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Love the name Hendricks.
Thanks.
That's a slick name.
How's sleep been?
Actually good.
Yeah?
Yeah, my daughter didn't sleep. My son sleeps. It's great. I actually had a full 6 hours yesterday.
All
It's
right.
Crazy.
6 feels like 12.
Honestly, it does. I woke up, I was like, man, I feel refreshed for some reason here. Man, that's
great.
That's good. Very good.
They wanted to wait till you were here to talk about the Dolphins.
We will get. Well, no, like,
We're talking baseball. Yeah,
I
that's
don't
true.
want to make you mad. It's just we're here for you to vent or let out
I
any
need it.
frustration.
I actually really need it.
Fins
Perfect.
down.
So we will
Yeah.
get to that. We will get to that. No question. about
You know
it.
what? For the first time in my life, I've questioned being a Dolphins fan.
Wow.
That's where I'm
That
at.
didn't take you long.
I was gonna
No,
go
I've
right into it.
I've been a Dolphins fan for my entire life.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I'm sitting here being like, really? Like, what am I doing to myself? Why do I need this in my life?
Did you call Mike McDaniel a dork?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. 'Cause a
But
lot
you
of
know how I am. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
really a fan of I'm not a fan of NHL teams because I played there. Like, I
Right.
love the sport. I love watching it. I obviously am going to root for the Edmonton Oilers because it's my home team, but I'm not like a through and through,
Play for them still.
diehard fan. Right? Like, I'll go in the game and I might cheer, I might whatever, I might have a good time. Depends on what my mood looks like.
push the limit and almost get thrown out of the arena.
100% for banging on the glass or
Yeah.
being a donkey, but that's where I'm at. So I've decided, okay, I want to be a true fan of other sports teams and other sports. So the Dolphins, the Raptors. I've forgotten about the Blue Jays. I'm out. So I only got 2 teams where I'm like, man, when the game's on, like I'm going to root
Where
for
you can
this
be a
team.
true fan.
Yeah. And the one that I really want to do well, what the hell?
Who's the other team?
The Raptors.
Okay.
They're rebuilding. I get that.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
direction. But this team's supposed to be a contender for the Super Bowl. Supposed to be.
Well, you lost your
But, like,
quarterback. What do you
Lost our
this is
quarterback,
Hangout
you
Headlines
still-
brought to you by the Ranch Golf and Country Club, offering premier conditions, top-notch service, unmatched value. Book your tee time by visiting theranchgolf.com. Closes October 20th. What, do you lost
Where
your
do you want me
quarterback?
to start with this?
Well, I feel like maybe you're being a little too harsh right now.
I'm definitely not.
When you lose your quarterback, you lose the idea to be like, well, they're Super Bowl contenders at that moment.
Well, let's start here. First of all, franchise, your O-line is hot garbage. It's been hot garbage for the last 5 years. And so if you even date back to when they had Tannehill was the most sacked quarterback in the league year after year after year because their quarter of their O-line play was, well, le poo-poo. And so then you would think in your head as a management team, be like, oh man, my quarterback is getting destroyed back there. Maybe I'm going to build an O-line. Right? We talk about sequoia trees all the time.
Yeah.
Hey,
Seems
here, try to get
logical.
through this. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah.
And then now my quarterback can start throwing it and has a little bit of time. And so now you bring in Tua. Tua has a laundry list of injuries. He's got health concerns all the time. And you would think that somebody in a position of building an organization or power would be like, I've got a quarterback that is made of paper mache. Maybe I should protect him.
Wait, do you guys know who runs the Dolphins?
Yes.
Do you guys remember?
Greer.
Yeah, well, I would
Chris
say
Greer.
Stephen Ross, but yes.
Yeah,
Chris
like
Greer,
for those, I don't know how many people remember that Mike Greer's brother
Yeah.
runs the Dolphins,
he's
which
made
is kind of
some-
cool.
he's made
There's your
some-
Edmonton connection.
That
to the
is a
Dolphins.
great Edmonton connection. But like, he's made some really good moves. Obviously, getting Tyreek Hill, one of the best receivers in the game, fantastic. Picking up Jalen Waddle, to add a little bit of depth or a secondary piece from a receiver perspective. Great. He's added an awesome
built a nice running back core.
It's awesome. But unfortunately, football, since the time it was created, is played in the trenches. And if you don't have trench play, you don't got nothing.
And I think your frustration is probably amplified by the fact that the AFC East was sewn up for 20 years.
Yep.
And there was finally this break that
Yep.
maybe someone else will get a turn. And the Bills kind of snatched that rather quickly. But there was a little crack that you thought someone else could
But there
break
should
through.
still even be that little glimmer of hope, because outside of this year, Josh Allen has been he's inconsistent all the time. So there's times where this guy looks like
They got smoked,
he did,
yeah.
true. But outside of that, he hadn't thrown a pick. He's been lights out. He's been one of the early MVP candidates. So there should be that glimmer of hope if you just figured out your team and constructed it properly. You still have the opportunity to do it. But you go into Buffalo comes to you and they just kick the doors right open. You're like, there was no pushback. And so that's where the problem is. And it's compounded by the fact that I walked through the door and somebody was like, Dolphins. And I'm like, oh, not even a high. Damn it.
I gave you a fist bump.
Venting.
I needed it. I appreciate
You
that.
have the
yeah.
Patriots this week, both 1-3 clubs. You're going to Foxborough.
I'm not convinced we'll win that game.
Well, this is. You guys should have kept Mike White. I really liked Mike White with the Jets.
He was a-
Mike
he
White
was a fine
was
option.
brutal in preseason.
I don't care about preseason. I'm sorry, does the preseason matters in what way? I can point to how many guys who've played well in preseason that don't do it in the regular season. I don't give a damn about the preseason. Well, last time I saw him in regular season play was with the Jets, and he was a serviceable.
How long ago was that again, by the way?
2 years ago.
2 years
Oh,
ago.
okay, so he hasn't played in 2 years. That's going to work.
Oh, what do you have right now?
I don't know. Maybe go after Tannehill, who's sitting on the bench. He's sitting in Boca Raton, Florida, with a dart in his mouth, being like, somebody sign me because I can be a starter. I would have said, hey, my paper mache quarterback might go down at any point. Let's get a legitimate backup in here so that he can jump in, and then, we're not missing anything.
I mean, Joe Flacco's in the league still. He was a good backup. You could have.
100%.
I'm very happy that Joe Flacco is still going.
still going strong.
And still producing.
Yeah.
Like, he
And
goes
winning.
in the Colts, and he
Yeah.
has a great game. And as a Ravens fan, I will never have bad things to say about Joe
course.
Flacco.
He delivered, right?
He delivered, and I don't care about the contract he got after because he delivered a Super Bowl still.
Yep.
And I love the fact, me and Warren Barris, because he's a Ravens fan, we were texting just after, on Sunday about Flacco. And it just brought a smile to our face that he's still doing good after all of these years. A 39-year-old still successful.
But I
100%.
think you're happy because he did deliver. Had he
Yes.
not won that Super Bowl,
Oh.
it would be a different story, right?
he was a fine quarterback,
Yeah.
but he could never get it done. But he had a John Elway playoffs
Yeah.
that year.
For-
He was 11 in touchdowns or 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He was brilliant.
For the
Yep.
rest of his life, he'll be able to sign Super Bowl MVP
Yes.
after autographs.
Yes.
Right? That's
Every time.
yeah.
Is there a quarterback you guys maybe? Well, your season's
Jimmy
done.
G, Jimmy G.
No, I don't want porn star G. Need it.
Do you know Case Keenum is still playing football?
What?
Where's he?
He was in a commercial, so I looked it up. He
Wow.
is
In the NFL?
in the
Zach
NFL.
Wilson?
He's a backup, buddy.
Just trying to help Belzy out
he's
here.
on a good team.
Where is Case now?
Houston Texans.
Yeah, that's where it was. Yeah. So there's teams do have solid backups, and
Who else could the
They
Dolphins
should
go
try to
get?
make a trade for Bryce Young.
that would be
You'd want
interesting.
that?
I would take that for sure. You have a quarterback that's young and up and coming. He can, if Tua's healthy, he can sit behind Tua, learn the offense. If Tua goes down, you insert him in. guy that has some legit upside to his game. Like, no disrespect to Huntley or any of these guys, but like they're just not at that level.
Don't you think you'd run into some of the same problems with Tua if you had Bryce Young, though? If he's running for his life? Bryce Young's a small guy, too.
Yeah, you probably do.
Yeah, but I understand what understand what you're saying, though. Like,
Yeah.
there's guys out there that you would just think better than Skylar Thompson or whoever is going to start for Miami.
I like this comment from Raider Jesse in the nasty chat. To you, Majeau, he says, "Can you fathom a Finns fan complaining about losing? He wouldn't survive as a Raider or a Jets fan."
That's
We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, they haven't dealt with it. Their losing has been a little something else.
Well,
Dolphins haven't, they've had a bad losing streak for a long time, but it's still not the Jets.
Do you know when the last Dolphin playoff win was? I'm sure you do. But do you guys know when it was?
2004 is my guess.
Guess?
Dan Marino era.
It was 2000.
Yeah.
So they've made the playoffs, but their last
They can't
playoff
do
Yeah,
it.
win.
so hey,
Ravens have
we
beat
are
them a
hot
couple
garbage
times.
too. So we're in the exact same boat as the Raiders and the Jets.
Yeah, there's a lot of if you were to rank like the 5 worst franchises in the NFL the last 10 years, that's probably where you'd start with. Jets, Raiders, Dolphins. I throw Washington in there. I throw Carolina in there.
I'm going to expand this to 20. I'm going to say since the 2000s. I'm just trying to think where I would go with
Cleveland.
this. Well, Cleveland has
Browns,
to be
yeah.
in there. The Jets would have to be in there. But because in my mind, I'm also thinking the teams that couldn't find a quarterback. The Dolphins' run of trying to find a quarterback was epic in a bad way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you go from Dan Marino to Tua, and you probably look at every starting quarterback they've had, there's a long list.
Yeah.
But the Bears are up there too, to me.
Yeah.
The Bears really haven't been good.
They had the one good year with Khalil Mack, his first year in Chicago.
Yeah.
They won 11.
Yeah.
That was the
Yes.
double doink
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had a couple good years in the 2000s, decent years.
The
Super
Urlacher years.
They went to the Super
Yeah.
Bowl with Rex
Yep.
Grossman, right? To a degree, Peyton's a Super Bowl win in that year, you kind of go well, you beat the Rex Grossman. But yeah, I guess the Dolphins.
But they've had Chad Pennington as a quarterback.
I wonder if I can find
And Chad Pennington was just an average quarterback, and he was celebrated.
Yep.
He just didn't turn over the ball. That's how bad the Dolphins franchise has been.
Yeah.
And that's not me trying to slag on Pennington, but it's the reality is that this guy was never even considered a top 15 quarterback. Yeah. He was just the ultimate game manager by, hey, I gave you 150 yards, but I didn't turn over the ball. Here's your chance to win.
Yeah.
And then they started pulling out the Wildcat around that time.
I remember
they
that.
decided to draft Pat White. Holy man.
That was the Tony Sperano era.
Yeah, that's right.
They've had some interesting eras down in South Beach.
The era that they probably shouldn't have, they should have maybe gave a little bit more time to was Dan Campbell.
Oh, yeah. It's working out now for
I
now.
know.
No, I
You
disagree.
don't think he was ready?
I think it's like Jason Moss. I think he learned from Miami, and I don't think he would have ever figured it out in Miami. He needed the firing to learn. I remember doing the show with JMO when Dan Campbell first took over, and the thing that we read immediately was, they're doing the Oklahoma drill. Which is a barbaric football drill that hasn't been done in so long. And
I don't think they changed it in Detroit.
I just don't think he's learned. I think he's learned from that time.
Yeah,
in my
fair, that's
it's the
fair.
same. Jason Moss said after the Grey Cup that he needed his experiences to go win with Montreal.
Yeah.
I would say the same with Dan Campbell. I'm looking at the starting quarterbacks of the Dolphins since.
Is
Dan
it an
Marino.
illustrious list?
So the year after Dan Marino ended, so in 2000, Jay Fiedler, Damon Hurd, Ray Lucas. I'm just going with who's who's started.
I'm having Madden fantasy draft flashbacks.
Oh, boy.
Right now. Third stringer.
Brian Greasy, AJ
Yeah.
Feely, Sage Rosenfels, Gus Farrat, Dante Culpepper, Joey Harrington, Cleo Lemon, Trent
Cleo
Green,
Lemon.
So the year that
John
they
Beck, Chad Pennington, Chad Henne, Tyler Thigpen, Matt Moore, Ryan Tannehill, Jake Cutler, Brock Osweiler, Josh Rosen, and then they got to the Tua era.
Wow.
So the year that they went after Dante Culpepper, it was between him and Drew Brees. Brees was just coming off an injury, and they're like, this guy's never going to rebound, and they picked Culpepper instead of Brees. Brees went to the Saints.
The rest is history.
Rest is history.
Drew Brees was one of the last legit superstar free agents.
Yeah.
And you could argue
Yes.
Sean Payton's success is tied directly to
And I think Brees actually wanted to go to Miami too.
I think you're
And
right.
it was Miami was like, no, we're going to go with Culpepper.
Wow. 2020 hindsight.
Classic.
Yeah.
How you feeling about your Jets?
Last Sunday wasn't the most fun I've had watching football. I'm still optimistic. I can throw out the results of saying it was just a sloppy game. Their offensive line did not look great at all. Rodgers got the crap kicked out of him. There was a blindside sack in the fourth quarter that looked like it would have killed a grown man, and he's 41 years old, so he said his knee's a little banged up. Their defense, the Jets have always had this vaunted defense, hasn't really been great. They can't stop the run, which is really frustrating because teams now know that. And the next two games versus the Vikings in London. So London games are always weird to begin with. And then you're home to I'm going to guess, an angry Buffalo Bills team. So your next two games, they are...
Wait, are the Bills in a bye?
I don't know who the Bills
Von Miller's suspended, by the way.
Von Miller is so washed, everyone forgot he was a domestic abuser. Like, that is how washed Von Miller is.
When that notification came yesterday, I was like, Von Miller's still there.
Yeah.
That's a great way of wording it. Bills are, actually, they're in Houston taking on the Texans. So that's a big game. Yeah. If they fall in that one, they could be really pissed off coming home.
So I still think 9 to 10 wins is realistic. Rodgers has looked old, but there's been times he's gotten out of the pocket and looked kind of half decent. So it's better than it was last year. It's just nice to not be out of the race by Canadian Thanksgiving.
Are they going to be in the running for Devontae Adams?
I think so. I don't think that's what they need right now, but I think this management coaching staff, I think they're aware they're going to get fired if they don't make the playoffs. So if you can acquire an all-pro talent, I think you kind of have to.
Well, what is his second round pick?
Second round pick. Give him Hassan Reddick too. I saw a tweet yesterday. Hassan likes losing money, so you can send him to Vegas. It'll be fine. Give him a second round pick and Hassan Reddick, and that's
what is I know how the NFL teams value their draft picks higher than other sports. Yep. To me, especially if you think you're going to get fired, just give up a second.
Yeah.
Just save the first, but immediately give up that second if you can go get him.
Especially if you have that connection with Devontae Adams from Green Bay.
Yeah.
Sure. That'd be unbelievable.
Have you guys watched the show on Netflix, Receiver?
I haven't.
The first episode, and then
he's I wouldn't say he's crotchety, but Adams looks like he's not having a good time with the Vegas Raiders, and that was last season. So I'd imagine more of that's picked up this year. So
I think the Bills would have to be involved too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can see that.
Replace Diggs.
But they've actually been fine because now Allen doesn't have to throw to one specific guy. He's kind of been able to spread the ball around, which actually has made them more dangerous.
Keon Coleman's been a pick for them too. Yeah.
The Raiders' tenure in Vegas has been very spotty, on and off the field. Clearly on the field, but off the field, it just seems like there's bad juju there.
Yep.
They had a guy kill someone.
I know.
Yeah.
In a car accident.
Guys get arrested. There was that weird. What was it? Who was having the weird domestic disputes where they were sending welfare checks to his place to make sure he wasn't suicidal? Who was that last year?
That. I can't remember. No. Yes.
I do not remember that.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was.
And he was going on TikTok and Instagram Live and being really cryptic. And
they should have got rid of that interim coach. I always forget his name when.
Richie Basil. No, that was the 49ers. Or was it?
It might have been him.
The pit boss?
Yes.
He looked like a pit boss from a Vegas casino.
Yeah. Well, and he got them to that game against the Chargers.
Oh, yeah.
Where winner moved on. And it also got to a point where if they tied, they both could have made it. But I think the Chargers kicked the game-winning field goal.
I think it was the opposite. I think they were annoyed that the Chargers weren't, and the Raiders kicked the field goal.
And they got to the playoffs then. Okay, and then they got smoked in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But it was one where then they moved on and they immediately brought in, I think that was Josh McDaniels. And it was, that was the year Gruden got fired.
Yes.
He turned that team around and they looked good and they just moved on from him. And I think he went to Chicago or something.
Gruden was up to no good, wasn't he?
Yeah, but this interim came in and
it's after Gruden?
That season. Yeah. Rich Avery and the Nasty Jet. See, and I always Bisaccia, I always say his name wrong.
Yeah.
He came in and he did a great job of getting that team to move on from Gruden and turn their season around. Got them on the right track, and they ended up. Yes, you're right. They made the playoffs.
Yep.
Stick with that. But immediately, Mark Davis was like, "I'm going for another name. I'm going to go for Josh McDaniels. Throw cash at his way." And
has Josh McDaniels really ever work?
Nope.
No.
He works when he's the offensive coordinator.
100%.
Have Tom Brady. And, Tom Brady will say a lot of times he'd get to the line with his 3 plays and pick and choose, right? So McDaniels fits if he has the tools, but he's not the guy, and he's shown that.
You don't touch, and then there was a long stretch, do not touch Bill Belichick coordinators.
Yeah.
Like
That's
there was
exactly
no
what I was just
reason
going to
for
say,
it.
yeah.
They have never really basically done well. Brian Flores was, I think, the closest to having success.
Yeah.
Eric Mangini made the playoffs 1 year, but that was it. But that was also, gosh, almost 20 years ago.
That was the early 2000s.
Yeah.
You
That was
almost
2006.
wonder if Tua wasn't in Miami when Flores was there and they had a different quarterback, if Flores would still be there.
Yeah. Flores was a good.
Because I know obviously that there's that relationship between Tua and Flores, which is like the ultimate level of toxicity.
Yep.
But if Flores gets who he wants, and I think he wanted to draft Herbert, well, what does that look like? Because one thing I can't argue with is his record. You know, that his record being there with shoddy receivers and all that different stuff. Well,
When he got fired, there were shockwaves.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, they're
100%.
making a move.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they were doing really well. Like,
They were
you
doing
guys
very well.
won like 8 games or something.
it was
down
like
the stretch or
8 or 9 in a row towards the end. They finished. I think did they make the playoffs that year?
I think they may have.
They
then
they
got
went
the
to a
doors
wild
blown
card,
off.
right?
Yeah.
And then they were out in the wild card, but they came on late and they were starting to build. Their defense was a top 5 defense. Everybody was flying around. It was their offense that was actually holding them back, but that was year 1 Tua with terrible receivers.
Yeah.
And I don't think he wanted to in any way, shape, or form on that team.
That's what tough, man. Like, there's an old Bill Parcells quote: "Is they want me to cook dinner, but they won't let me buy the groceries." Like, what am I supposed to do with
Yeah.
this? So it's tough.
So I think it'd be a different situation if they would have had Herbert. And I'm not saying that that's a better choice. I'm just saying if they had him, Flores is probably still a coach.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Martin via the Paris Jewelers inbox 780-218-9999 says it's time to call Jeff George out of retirement for the Dolphins and his crazy way of throwing the ball. Remember, he had the finger always at the tip of the ball. And then Chandler Jones, Martin adds, was the Raider that was going a little loco.
And he was doing IG Lives naked?
He was doing IG Lives, like very cryptic, and he was acting like very erratic.
Concern about his health.
Yeah.
He was in a bad place. That was last year.
There's been some really interesting things that have happened with football players. I think there was a one Dolphins assistant coach that did a YouTube live where he was snorting.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh,
And he was talking
Chris
about
Forster.
stuff. Yeah,
For the
you remember
longest
that
time
one?
at the old place, I screen capped it. And I used it as my desktop picture.
That one
because
was
I
insane.
screen capped it like perfectly. He was like licking his lips and stuff.
Yeah.
Boy.
I'm like,
I forgot
man,
about
there's
that.
been some interesting ones.
Oh, you guys need a little bit of Chris Forster in your lives right now.
Oh,
Like,
man.
Guys get in trouble with
forgot
the IG lives.
You see
Or very-
Shannon Sharp got in trouble with the other
I
night?
there's
did.
nothing in trouble for.
Well, that was just him.
He's having a good time.
Yeah.
He was having a great time.
About it, right? Like, he
Yeah,
capitalized on
exactly.
it.
Like, it's just living.
That one wasn't.
Is that
I think
the image?
That one was, yeah, that wasn't
Yes.
that wasn't that guy.
There's
Yes.
a picture as he like looks up that like I
that
I
right there.
paused it like perfectly.
I just had a flashback to.
Yeah.
And I had that until they had a white part computer one time, and I lost it. I was like, oh, every time I logged into my computer before the show, I had Chris Forster looking at me. It was great.
Google is your friend.
Oh
I always
man.
imagine like the poor people from CTV that came over just to do a quick, and then they see something like that. Like, what's on the deck? Why is there a Yeg sun face all over the? There's
Oh, the egg sun faces. Who did? Was that you or Eric?
that was Eric. And then one time in response, a DJ from the Bear then printed off a bunch of horrible images and put them around our. And then I think it was Stacey Brotzel came in.
She came in. She was not happy.
No, and I don't blame her
No.
for that. That
well,
was.
I'll explain what that one was. But before the egg faces, Eric would take the Sunshine Girl. Or somebody from the sun, because we used to get the sun, and he'd fold their face so like the nose would go away, so it'd be the eyes over the mouth, and he'd just save it, and he'd like tape it, and he'd put it for people. Lachlan Cross, I'll call him. He's now in Saskatchewan or whatever. I don't care. Him and his show with James P. White and stuff. I don't know why they wanted to get to the Morning Boys, but they printed off a bunch of dick pics. Like, they found a bunch of them. Like not even a singular
No,
dick.
it was a lot.
They found different ones. And they printed them off and they papered the 1260 studio and producer room. Like papered it. put them everywhere. They put it in spots that like we were still finding them like a month, 2 months later, because like you'd pull something out, be like, oh, another dick pic. What they didn't realize was in the mornings, before our boys got there for the morning show, Stacey Brotzel or someone from CTV would come to record their news that we would air on the station.
Right.
So she comes into the room and she just sees a bunch of dicks.
Jesus. Not Richards, but
Yeah.
yeah.
She was not happy, and she thought it was our boys that first did it.
Oh.
Like we had nothing to do with this, and then so this had to go up to like our boss because he had to find out who did this because she was on like, and I could. It's
I get it.
3:34 in the morning, and all of a sudden you turn on the light and there's a bunch of dicks. You know, like
Wow. I heard
That's
about this.
hilarious.
This was before I got there, right? Yeah.
And so then it became this big thing, and I think Locke had to apologize to her and stuff. But yeah, like for months we were still finding dick pics.
It was
all over the
Dickgate.
place.
It was. It
Like,
was.
like if Kent Morrison went in there,
He would have laughed.
he would have laughed, but he would probably be like, they probably shouldn't do that, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
You never know which
Yeah.
salesperson's bringing up a tour.
Exactly.
around the station.
Yeah, so it wasn't good.
Yeah, that was an
Kind of funny,
interesting. It was an interesting.
The end
few days.
result is funny because, like, looking back, because they also got in trouble for it, and it was like, yeah, we did nothing.
Right.
I don't even know
all
why
just
they did
started because Eric did something so goofy.
Was it because of Yegface?
I think it was because I think Locke was mad that Eric left them in the Bear studio.
Okay.
I think that's how it came about.
Way to go, Rick.
He used to get mad about little army men being in that in the building.
Got mad at
it's-
a lot
I
of
could see
things.
that completely.
Yeah.
But Yeg faces, they were funny.
They were
People look so funny when you fold their heads.
Yep. The things you do when it's 5:30.
yeah.
I miss
Commercial
getting
breaks.
those papers in the morning.
Yep.
You can get a newspaper for free if you have an Edmonton Public Library card.
Really?
Just throwing that out there.
Have you seen a paper lately?
digital copies?
Okay. Like
I go into it sometimes. I don't want to throw it out there too much, but if you have a library card, you can access like the Sun and the Journal for free every day.
Libraries
Oh, okay.
are
And you could
exceptional.
flip through
Yeah.
it through digitally. And every so often I do pull it up. They are very useless with how
yeah.
thin they are now.
They're
They're
tiny.
the same too, aren't they?
Yeah.
The Sun and the Journal are the same. They also mix in the National Post within that because it's all the same company. So if you get like a Journal today, you will have Journal Sun stuff with National Post stuff all in one, which is also just super paper thin. Do you remember how thick those?
Oh man, my grandpa used to, my nono used to have them laid out because they're so big, and I'd be like, "Hey, take the sports." He'd be like, "1 second," and he'd be like flipping through A, B, section D, E, F, G, H. Here you go, Thomas. You know, and I'd be like, "Thanks, no." It'd just be the whole living room covered in newspaper from the day.
My grandpa used to wake up early and steal his neighbors and read it and then put it back.
Smart play.
As long as he gives it back.
Yeah, he gave it back.
Yeah.
He used to tell us,
Yeah.
get up, take what I need. I'll be back before he wakes up.
There you go.
Portions of this hour of the EST Hangout are brought to you by the High Product Marketing, official merch partner of EST, promotional products that bring the buzz. Check them out, thehighproductmarketing.com. You're tuned in to Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton Sports. Shawn Belle, Iwanyk, Marc Majeau, Tom Gazzola with you here on the Hangout. Let's get to it. Let's get to our keyword for the EST Flyaway to Los Angeles, presented by the 780 homegrown local shop right here in Edmonton. It's both their name and their in-house clothing that celebrates all things unique to E-Town. They're working with close to 100 local vendors from across 780 to help promote and get their brands off the ground. Check them out online, 780.com. It's the word 780.com, or visit them at their 5 locations at Southgate, Londonderry, Kingsway, St. Albert, or at the Outlet Mall by the airport. We want to send you to Los Angeles, December 26th through December 30th. Go to Intuit Dome to see the Clippers take on the Warriors on the Saturday or the Sunday. It'll be the Cards Rams at SoFi Stadium, and whichever day that is, on the other day you will get to see Edmonton take on either LA or Anaheim. Round trip flights, hotel, car, all for you. We're qualifying 4 times a day. Morning show, Hangout, EST afternoons, as well as the Reed Wilkins show, and once on weekends on Hello Hockey. The keyword for today on the Hangout to text to 780-218-9999. It is nightlife. Nightlife to 780-218-9999. Text that in right now. You'll go into a draw in the next few minutes. YouTube Trav will make a draw, and then we'll call someone on the air. You will be our next qualifier for the EST Flyaway to LA, presented by the 780. Qualifying goes until November 28th, and then November 29th on the morning show. We'll give this away. Reminder for the qualifying opportunities, as well as on November 29th. Keep your phone on, because you got to answer to win. If you don't answer, we move on.
It's an unbelievable trip.
It really
Even just
is.
to see the new stadium. where the Clippers are going to play. Like,
Yeah.
that alone is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I was looking at like the Lakers and Kings play on the Saturday night, and as much as I'm a Laker fan, a LeBron fan, it was like, okay, well, one, you got to go see like if Kawhi is playing, you got to go still see Kawhi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got to go see Steph. You got to go see Draymond. But this new, like everything that we're seeing about it looks like it is absolutely like the new standard for rinks coming. Add on the fact that SoFi is the new standard for how arenas are going. Plus, you got to go watch Edmonton play hockey.
Yeah.
It's a fun little trip.
Bingo.
So, yeah, it'll be a fun little trip.
I know you like LeBron. Have you seen him play before?
With the Heat.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It was in Toronto. It was LeBron. It was Bosch. It was D Wade all playing against the Raptors. And my dad's teacher, like she had a connection through, I think, or his father-in-law, one of his teacher's father-in-laws. They had like seats right behind the Raptors bench.
Wow.
So my brother and I sat right behind the bench to see LeBron.
That's
and I
really cool.
had a little BlackBerry at the time, and LeBron walks by at one point. I took a picture of him, and he's staring right at me.
Oh, wow.
So I got a picture of like this grainy picture of him like looking at me. It was great.
Classic.
So I have seen LeBron play.
Awesome.
Well, we went through it. Like the Reed and Jay yesterday, one of their topics were your top athletes, like greatest athletes of all time that you have seen in person. And like I was like, as soon as I was like, I've been fortunate now. I've seen LeBron, I've seen Kobe, I've seen Jeter, which then Reed Wilkins started saying was overrated. Wasn't happy.
I thought that was hilarious
And
today
I was
with
like,
the
well,
boys.
then that's why I was like,
yeah.
come in and say that you're in the Hangout when Joe's here. And what? I've seen Messi.
Oh, yeah, because you're at the Copa game, right?
And I've seen Connor. Actually, I didn't even say this one. I've seen Connor McDavid.
And Crosby, too, right?
Yeah.
In the mix?
Ovi. So I've actually been very fortunate.
That's a good list.
That's a really good
You've
list.
played against
Guys?
some of those guys, too, though, right?
Played against some of those guys.
And
but
with Crosby.
I haven't seen the like LeBrons or the MJs. I didn't get the chance to do that, but would have seen probably Vince Carter.
Oh,
I would have seen Peyton Manning, obviously, doing his thing. When I was living in Houston, he'd come in and torch the Texans at the time, every game that they'd play.
Brady game then? Or no?
I don't think I've seen Brady play, no. T-Mac, Yao Ming.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Those guys were always
that would've been cool.
Actually,
Yeah, they were always in the. So we shared, like the Arrows would share the stadium with the Rockets.
Okay.
And so if there was games where we were at home on a Friday, they'd be practicing. So their practice facility was attached to the Toyota Center. And so we'd all park down the same ramp, right? So it was actually
Tell
kind
about
of
the
funny.
vehicles.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
So it's funny because at the time in Houston, like we had a bunch of first, second rounders, right? So a first and second rounder in the NHL level going down to the minors, they're driving, you have your caddies, you have your BMW 3 Series, maybe a 5 every now and then. But then as you kind of continue going down the ramp, it's like Bentley. And then you get down to the bottom of it, and it was Yao Ming had a stretch, I think it was a stretch Range Rover, and Trace McGrady had a stretch Hummer. And they're the only two that could actually park down in the actual loading bay, but those two would get washed every single time. They didn't matter. Like it could be sunny, one leaf falls down, and then that thing was getting washed, and everybody else was like up in the top. And it was like Steve Francis was there, and he's parking his Bentley. It was like a red Bentley. It was nasty, and he'd park that thing up top, and it's just like, what are we doing parking in the exact same spot as these guys? Because you could easily access that parking garage. Like they never closed it. It just wasn't when you got closer to the bottom that it was, okay, now people are around. Mm-hmm. I'm like, so yeah, it's pretty easy to go steal a Bentley if you really wanted to.
Let's go to Houston.
Go to Houston. Go hang out around the Toyota Center.
So if fans knew, they could swarm.
They could just
the
walk
game
right down. They could go probably say, oh, there's Stevie Franchise's vehicle. Here's this person's, but you'd never get all the way down. But the collection of cars that some of these guys had, like, so you had T-Mac having the stretch Hummer, but he also had a Phantom. And I remember standing outside of the bar one day, and the bar was empty. It was me and Joel Ward, and we were friends with all the bouncers. So it's like, you walk up, hey, boys. They're like, hey, boys, you guys got to wait. What do you mean we got to wait today? There's nobody in line. Like, just let us. He's like, no. There's a big dog coming in. Just give us like 5 minutes. As soon as he said that, here comes this Phantom. It was like a cream Phantom shows up. We're like, who is this? They roll the red carpet out. All the bouncers are like coming out of the building, setting up like a rope. And then this little guy, he might have been like 5'5", a little bald dude. Eduardo looks at me. He's like, "Who the blank is this guy?" I'm like, "I don't know." He opens the door. Here comes T Mac, and I'm like, perspective.
Royalty. Yeah.
I'm just still can't shake the image of Yao Ming just driving a vehicle. Like,
Right.
I know you said
I don't think he drove. He had a driver.
How could he even
But
fit
getting in the vehicle, like,
Yeah,
just
but that's
in
why.
general.
Yeah, that's why you'd have to have that stretch, right?
Unbelievable. Like, how would
Yeah.
traveling for that guy would be a nightmare.
100%.
They had the private
Yeah,
charter team.
exactly.
Well, how did those guys in like the 80s do it when it was non-chartered? You took those commercial flights.
You hear a lot of stories about Andre the Giant.
Yes.
Flying over to
yeah.
Japan and like, it's kind of gross, but he had to go to the bathroom in the aisle because he couldn't fit in the bathroom.
That's wild.
So they put newspaper down, and he'd have to that's
Yeah.
yeah. You wonder why players struggle on the road when they can't fit in hotel beds and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's like, yeah, I remember just reading the Jeff Pearlman Showtime Laker one and talking about the commercial, and you think like a Kareem.
Yeah.
Like, that guy has to get on a plane with just regular people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, okay, that seems like very difficult. Like,
And the guy in front of him puts his seat back.
And after playing 4 games in 5 nights wearing Chuck
that's-
Taylors.
that's where it's like, when you see NBA players in person, like,
They're
it is
giants.
Yeah.
It is like you watch them on TV, and it's one thing because they're all standing next to each other, so
Yeah.
they all look. But you go then see them in person, like, phew, wow, you guys are just massive.
Yeah.
You guys are
Who's
beasts.
the biggest guy you ever went up against?
Biggest player?
Yeah, like just when you see him on the other, like, that guy's a giant out
Well,
there.
John Scott.
Yeah.
So he was at 6'8".
Yeah, that's a big boy.
He was one of them. Boogie.
Oh, yeah.
Were you on Boogie's team?
I was on
Pronger.
Boogie's team.
Pronger's like 6'6".
Was he?
Pronger was obviously
He's
one of
big.
them.
Yeah.
Who else would I have
Just
seen?
guys that stand out.
There's
I guess I would have
monsters.
seen like Zdeno Chara.
Holy cow, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I actually played against Chara. I would say that probably the biggest guy would have been like Boogie or Johnny Scott.
Unbelievable.
John Scott's a giant. I remember interviewing him at the red carpet, All-Star Nashville. And I was like, "John, Oilers TV." He's like, "Oh, yeah, okay." Because he was actually born here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was very friendly, very fun to talk to. That, and he had a great weekend. He was the MVP All-Star. Remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember the whole story, and the NHL wasn't exactly too thrilled by it, but it brought him a lot of attention. It was
did.
great.
Yeah, it did.
Don't
was
mind
good.
Trev too much.
Hello, Trev.
He
We
was funny. Like Johnny was so funny in the minors because he was just starting to try to become a tough guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think he actually wanted to do it.
He's so good at
but he
it.
was so big, and he just had that reach that because we had Cass at the time, we had Johnny Scott, we had I think we had Aaron Voro, so like we had
yeah.
a pretty heavy team, and Johnny just there was times where it's like, oh, this guy's coming in, I am not fighting that guy. And then Cass is like, I'll do it. You know, Grizzly Bear Cass.
Cass is a grizzly
Yeah.
bear.
Before you get to what you need to get to,
Oh.
let's qualify someone for the EST Flyway to Los Angeles, presented by 780. Trev, do you know who's on the line? Richard, congratulations. You are now qualified for a chance to go to LA. Have you been to LA before?
I have been to LA. Yes, I have. Yeah.
Perfect. If you win this trip, what would you be most excited about? Going to see the NBA, the NHL, or the NFL? Or just being in LA?
All of it, to be honest with you. But I've never been to an NFL or an NBA game. So that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I do stand by that. I believe the NBA is one of the best live person sports that you can go to. Well, congratulations, Richard. Keep your phone on November 29th because if you are the winner, the boys will give you a call, let you know that you're off to Los Angeles. Congrats and best of luck.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. You guys are doing a great job over there.
Thank you very much. And there's Richard. He's qualified. Your next chance to qualify for the EST Flyway to LA. Presented by 780, coming up on EST Afternoons with Hernan Salas and Joaquin Gage. You want to get something?
Sure. It's via the Paris Jewelers inbox, 780-218-9999 as we roll into hour number 2 here on the EST Hangout. Get out of here, Trev. This text comes in and says, hey guys, any update on when a Nasty can get in on the annual Nasty Club membership? That's a Maddie question, so I'm just throwing it at you because I know you've been mentioning it the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I have to send an email today to all the current Nasties. The new stuff will come up the week after Thanksgiving. That week,
there you go.
Annual memberships will reopen.
Beauty. You guys are talking about like the best players of all time you've seen play live. Gretzky, Messier, Kobe in one of his last ever home games. Very selfish that night. He did not pass the ball once. He was just shooting for everything. A Jeter, I saw. And then football-wise, I think I only watched the Bills and the Cardinals. And then I guess I saw Steelers and Bengals. And then Tony Romo is definitely not one of the greatest players I've ever seen.
On hockey, did you ever get Mario? Or
I saw Yager many times, obviously. No, and I went to a Pittsburgh game when Mario was still playing, but he didn't play that game. Yeah,
that stinks.
It was like 1994. Yager had the bubble Jofa.
Prime.
Yeah,
Pens.
and Edmonton won that night. It was when the Coliseum still had the red seats. Ken Raggett started in net for the Penguins, and Edmonton actually won that game. I was like, I was pissed off I didn't get to see Lemieux.
Impressive.
Yeah.
The official drink of the EST Hangout. It is the Finnish long drink, legend of 1952, a drink unlike any other, sparkling refreshment, real liquor. Longdrink.com/Canada. I don't think I've seen you since you've been.
I've had it lots.
Yeah, it's delicious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Like when you were texting me, like, how do I find more of this?
Yeah, because I was actually on a mission to try to find some.
Longdrink.com/Canada. Enter your postal code and you find where they are. The official drink of the EST Hangout. They are absolutely just amazing.
Advertising works.
It seems to, yeah.
This one it does.
Well, it's not even the
That's the one.
advertising.
Just try. All I say is try it once, and if you come, tell me you don't like it if you didn't, because I don't buy it. I think if you have it once, you're going to want more.
It's
But I
very
think
good.
That's the problem, is that I come in here and you're like, hey, have a drink of this. And I'm like, no, I don't want that because it's early. And then I have it. And I'm like, oh, man, that's actually pretty good. Same thing with the other one that was on.
Two
Hoots.
You poured it, and it's like...
Well, that
okay.
one was unfair to most people, though, because we had a 4-liter box that was very easy to pour. Like,
was
here,
ridiculous.
these are empty right now because we're drinking them. So, like, I have to go get you a can. It'd be a lot of work right now.
Well,
you like one?
I don't want one,
Okay.
but it's just my point of that. It happens where it's just like it's so easy to. Oh, you wanted one? Here, let's crack it. Let's pour it into a coffee cup, and
Away we go.
Well, this is delicious.
We should have Hangout after dark sometimes.
Yeah.
100%.
Knock those ones
That'd be
back.
hilarious.
Dim the lights a little bit
Yeah.
and just have a...
Make it
For
sexy.
Maddie, that's at like 9:30 a.m.
Well, he would hit the 2 Hoots pretty quickly.
Yeah, he would. Yeah,
Yeah.
He would pour that thing before the
You
show
want
started.
Yeah.
I'm here for the sponsors. It's the few times in life, like when you could socially you start drinking and socially acceptable. I think you take it. You go to the airport at 6 a.m. It's
yeah.
acceptable to have a beer. No one questions you.
True.
It was a thing during COVID. The fact that you could just drink all day was one of those, like, yeah, what else are you going to do? It was acceptable. The fact that I have it on this show, it's acceptable because they're a sponsor. So I will take the opportunity to have it early. And you can't be like, well, there's an alcoholic. It's no, I'm supporting the client.
I believe there's commercials for you out there.
Yeah. Do you know someone who's struggling? Oh. It's okay, man. The cameras aren't even on. We're just
We're here to this is
Dolphins, and now it's time to take care of me. Big day coming up tomorrow on the morning show. I'm not going to go into too much details. The boys have not heard this, but Whale and the Wolf has supplied the boys with a song.
Oh, wow.
I
It's
feel
going to
like
get its first airing tomorrow on the morning show. With that, the boys, if you want to see Whale and the Wolf, they're taking part of GEDFest, which is the Edgar Downey Fest. It's been an annual show that's been held in Calgary for the last few years around the passing of Gord Downey to build on the legacy of the former frontman of the Tragically Hip. They're expanding to Edmonton for the first time. It features Whale and the Wolf, followed by a set by Edmonton's premier Tragically Hip tribute band, Hypnotical, which I think I've seen them before, and they are great. Midway Music, October 19th. Proceeds of the sales do go to the Ben Stelter Foundation, the Alberta Cancer Foundation. GEDFest, gedfest.ca for tickets to one. Go see a great night of music, to go help support great causes in the Ben Stelter Foundation and the Alberta Cancer Foundation, and also a chance to go see our boys, Whale and the Wolf, who are absolutely amazing. That's October 19th, gedfest.ca for more details on that festival. And again, yeah, the boys providing us with something for the show tomorrow. With that said, Lucas does say have fun at sailgating this weekend.
Cannot wait. I leave tomorrow for Seattle for
All right.
University of Washington versus the University of Michigan on Saturday night.
Nice.
It is weird to me that that's a conference game. Like,
Yep,
that is
it's
still
very
going to
odd.
take used to.
Yep.
I'm still concerned what this is going to do long term, but some of the games we've seen early in the college football season because of this conference realignment have been just great.
Yeah, like did you catch USC versus Michigan a couple weeks ago?
I didn't because I think there was an Elks game. My brother was texting me about it though because he's a Wolves fan.
Yeah, it was exciting, man. I feel bad for USC that had to go across the country to do that, but it's been a fun first few weeks of college football. Like how great was, I don't know if anyone watched it, Alabama, Georgia on Saturday.
It was ridiculous.
It was a crazy comeback, wasn't it?
There's a 17-year-old man. What were you doing when you were 17?
Unbelievable.
Were you catching 75-yard touchdown passes in front of 85,000 people?
He was not allowed to drink after that game legally. I like how the announcers always kept going legally. He's not allowed to drink.
Well,
Obviously,
technically,
illegal.
none of them are unless they're 21, right?
Yeah, we had that with Crosby at the World Juniors in Finland. We all
You guys found ways around that?
We all ended up going to the bar, and he had to go back to the hotel.
That makes
Really?
sense.
Yeah.
Or are you just saying that?
No, I'm being dead serious.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
no.
So we had the green light, so
Yeah.
we all got to go to the bar, and Sid, because he was underage, they wouldn't let him in. He had to go back to the hotel.
Wow, that sucks.
It did suck.
Not for you, though.
Not for us.
I'm sure Sid's been able to recover from that.
I think so
But
too.
Yeah,
still.
call it a hunch.
But still, that is interesting.
College experiences are great.
Yeah,
They're
that-
fun. Have you been to a college football game?
I haven't. That's why I'm really excited about this. Look, we're gonna get good weather.
Great atmospheres there.
It's a night game. It starts at 4:30 local, so we'll be able to watch some of the games leading up to it. The campus, apparently, University of Washington, is beautiful. So excited just to check out that entire experience. I don't anticipate there'll be Michigan fans there, but they won't outnumber. Like I've been to Yankee games, especially in Arizona,
Yeah.
when it's Yankee Stadium West, man. Like we were chatting, let's go Yankees before first pitch. It'll be a little bit different atmosphere, especially after the Connor Stallions documentary on Netflix. I imagine people are going to be yelling a bunch of stuff at me, but I'm excited for the experience.
Is it dry there at UW?
That's a good question. I don't
believe so.
Well, because we went to a Sooners game when we were in OKC.
Dry.
You could drink outside. You could do whatever you wanted outside. But
was
the
a
minute
lot
you
of
stepped
that.
foot into that building, it was dry.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to do some
I'm
research.
texting Luke right now because he's been there.
Yeah, that was, and it was crazy on campus around the
Yeah,
OU
like
Stadium.
there's so much tailgating. It was
Oh.
awesome. Like some of
Yeah.
the stuff that they had for tailgating was
Wild.
fantastic. But it's like, oh, we can't drink inside the stadium?
Yeah.
Nope.
I did go see a Huskies basketball game in like 2012 or something, and they didn't serve. My brother was looking, and they couldn't find.
Wow.
Colleges, for the longest time, mostly didn't do it.
Yep.
They have slowly been adding it because I
Okay.
think they've realized the revenue that they're
Yeah,
missing out on.
Yeah.
Huh, yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the Coliseum to see UCLA Trojans, and there was nothing inside. But I think since then, because did an NFL team go to the Coliseum while SoFi was being built? Did one of
The
teams
Rams.
play
Yeah,
there? Was
the
the
Rams-
Rams
the
playing
Rams played
there?
out of
They
it, yeah.
put in, I think, alcohol lines, booze
Okay.
lines, so that they could serve during those games. And now
Smart.
it's like there. So like they have slowly been
Yeah.
college accepting. I think if you go to Michigan Stadium now, if I'm not mistaken, they have it now.
Yep.
Because they've realized that there's a lot of people that are over 21 that actually do come to these
Yeah.
games. So they missing on how much revenue?
A lot. Well, my first NCAA football game was at UNLV at Sam Boyd Stadium, where Greg Bartholomew butchered the Canadian anthem prior to a Las Vegas Posse game.
Canadian heritage moment. I love
Yeah,
that clip.
so what a homecoming that was, going to see the UNLV running Rebs against BYU. And it was my buddy's bachelor party, and his brother organized this thing. There's 17 of us there, gets us 17 seats. It's a 30,000 seat stadium, but I think there was like 15,000 people. The Rebels sucked. And so we get in there, and we're looking around. We all buy like UNLV gear, and I'm like, why is there all this blue and white? And he bought in the BYU section, but they did serve. So we were running to the beer line like every second play, and there was never anyone in the line. And I finally went. I was oblivious to it. I didn't know BYU was a Mormon school, or I didn't know Utah. It was just I didn't know, right? And I go to the girl. I'm like, what's with the beer lines? They're so empty. And then she's like, you're in the BYU section. I'm like, what does that mean? She goes, they don't drink.
They were probably just looking at you.
To their credit, they were very good with us, very patient. But yeah,
You had a buddy organize a trip for 17, like
yes.
20 somethings.
Yes.
How is your friend not running the country right now with
Wait,
organizational skills?
he's
like
a very
that?
smart man. He's an engineer and has
Yeah.
done quite well for himself.
you
so
have to
That's
be, man.
impressive.
yeah, But like to buy in the BYU section was a bonehead move.
That's fair.
Although
he was planning a trip for 17. I think you could.
Yeah, exactly. It was just unreal. I have other stories that are not fit for air about that trip.
Hangout after dark.
Yeah. Although the boys were talking about the morning show, talking about naming your vehicle. My vehicle's name came from a Vegas trip, a different bachelor party a few years later. I met a South African burlesque dancer named Mika, and that's what I named my car. Meeka.
Why did you name it Mika?
This is beautiful.
Oh, that's the reason.
And elegant.
Okay.
Lucas says it's dry in the stands. They do have an area kind of like a smoking pit for booze.
Well, there you go.
Weird.
So, like, I guess a spot you can just go crush your drink quickly to get back to the seats, but you can still get them. But yeah, in the stands at Husky Stadium, you can't do anything.
Perfect.
So,
Well, I'm very excited for Saturday night. It's been a long
the
time.
tailgating looks cool.
Yeah, it really does. That stadium looks like it's in a beautiful part of the town. So I can't wait. I wish Michigan threw the ball a little bit more than they've been doing right now. They haven't been able to.
You're a Wolverines fan?
Yeah. So it'll be a decent game. I think Washington will keep it close. I think Washington opened as 3-point favorites as well. So
Really?
Isn't it wild? I'm getting off tangent here.
No, all
Isn't it
good.
wild how closely Vegas predicts
How they
college
get things.
football score? Like, how does Vegas know Ohio State is going to beat Marshall by 36 points? Like, it is unbelievable how close they get so many of those games.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like, it's bananas.
We could get into the the conspiracy of all that.
Oh, is that where we're going?
Of course, but they're so good at those.
That's like a whole show in itself.
Yeah.
But what would be
Where's NCAA?
if you were a football player? Like, what would be the best place to go play in your mind?
If you're college football,
College football player.
best place to play.
Yeah.
Like, what do you define what you're looking for as best? Is it to win? Is it atmosphere?
Nope.
Is it like
Atmosphere, how they would treat you, city, obviously. Just wrapping that all into one bow. Like, you look at all the different groups around, all the different
Texas.
teams around. That's kind of what I was thinking. But like, Austin would be awesome. But
Yeah.
like, Michigan would be unreal.
Yeah.
I think it would be USC.
I think LSU would also be another good one, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like bigger cities. Like
Yep.
initially I would think Tuscaloosa at Bama or something, but you're in Tuscaloosa,
Yeah. No.
right? Like it's not
Yeah.
sexy in that sense. You go like I said it earlier. NFL, LA doesn't care about the NFL. That's because they care about college. They care
Yep.
about USC. They care about UCLA. So if you are a successful team at USC, like if you could, whoever goes wins the next national title for USC,
Yep.
they will be a big deal.
Well, I kind of feel the same way about Austin, Texas, with the Horns.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Like when they had Vince Young running that place. Oh my God.
Well, think about the Vince Young, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, kind of like those three names coming from those two schools at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah.
That we still remember those guys.
Oh yeah.
We remember. Now that was a great national championship, but that's where I think they elevate. Those are the schools because if you're going to add in like the city and stuff, because I could also throw Ohio State, but you are in Columbus in December and stuff or
What
November.
about like Miami? The U.
Miami is no. The reason I say no to Miami is that they don't exactly have like. There's a lot of Hurricanes fans out there. Go you! My school, I love them. They're not exactly like the best fans. Always like the Florida
fair
fan
enough,
base
yeah.
isn't the best across sports.
It's very fickle.
The Hurricanes don't even have their own facility, like their own stadium.
Yeah.
They tore down the Orange Bowl and they've just moved into where the Dolphins were. It's not their own. It's the Miami Hurricanes, and they still don't even have their own stadium.
That is
So-
wild, actually.
I would take like whoever goes wins next with Miami. Maybe it's this year. They do really well. It is a big deal, but I think they have fallen in the stature right now.
Yeah. I would agree with you.
Maybe another one, like, I think all these are great answers, but I think what's happening right now, being at Colorado Buffalo, I think would be a lot of fun, too. Like, Boulder, Colorado's this nice city.
Yep.
I think Dion has whipped, well, the entire country up into a frenzy, but especially, like, that market and those players. There's a lot of really fun spots. So, and NIL has just changed so much,
Yeah,
right?
big
you
time,
You
yeah.
can just straight up say, we'll pay you X amount to come play here.
But now we're getting to the new issue with it with the UNLV quarterback who says I'm owed $100,000, and they're going, no, we didn't promise you that, or all this weirdness that's come from because nothing's on paper yet.
Yeah.
And now like the next step of NIL is like, okay, well, we probably should get things on paper so we don't go through these situations because who do you believe in? That's like who's right? Is it? I I think the quarterback's right. He's owed $100,000 probably, but
He might
maybe
never
just-
see that money though.
Might never see that money.
Yeah.
But also, like, yeah, I don't know. It's
It's a mess.
Yeah.
It'll take a while to
fully
bring-
sort things out, but I'm glad the NIL is there.
Yep.
Because partly one is anyone that thinks that some of these players weren't getting paid before, it was happening.
Yes.
But now it could be out there, and like if the coaches can go wherever the hell they want, players should be able to go wherever the hell they want. And if it's for money, go for money.
I just always hated the fact that it was like, oh, this guy cheated. What do you mean he cheated? The whole country's cheating right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Getting caught.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
Like,
just it.
What was a documentary on 60 for 60? I think it was SMU. Was it SMU?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the death penalty.
penalty.
They
yeah.
had the death penalty. It's like, guys, everybody's doing it right now. They just did it better than you. And so now you're like,
They didn't do it better than them because they got caught.
well, fair enough, but they all got caught. It was more of the fact that it was the big boys were like, hold the phone.
Yeah.
You guys can't be doing this. You guys can't build this good of a program. That's really what happened. So I just always have a tough time. Like, they're all cheating.
Yeah, you're mad.
Everybody knows it.
You're
Yep.
just mad if it's the team that you hate the most
Yeah.
that is doing it well, right?
Yeah.
Like I mentioned the Netflix documentary about the sign stealing with
Yep.
Michigan. Ohio State was the team that was the most upset about Michigan sign stealing,
Yeah.
right? And that's, yeah, of course. Everyone, if you're not cheating, you ain't trying.
Good point.
Facts.
It stinks, though.
Facts. They're all doing it.
Did you want
Yeah.
to get into sign stealing? No. Okay.
I haven't seen that doc.
It's
Although actually the doc I wanted to talk to you about was the Vince McMahon.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I have not either.
Hearing a lot of great things about it. Ty Jordan was like immediately texting me from Calgary, going like, "You got to watch this. It's amazing." Have you got into it?
Boy, no, it was one of those things where I watched the first episode. I'm like, well, I can't leave it here. So I watched it really, really fast. As a professional wrestling fan, didn't really tell me something I didn't already know. There's just a lot of repeating stuff, but it reminds me, I don't think I've ever seen a documentary in which the subject has changed during production of the documentary. They made essentially 80% of this before all the super heavy allegations came out against Vince McMahon. So all the interviews were conducted, and they throw that up pretty quickly. Like in the first 5 minutes, they explain what happened. They get 80% of it out of the way, or 80% of the interviews before the real hammer comes down, and then Vince canceled a bunch of the interviews after that. So it's fascinating because Vince McMahon is responsible for creating this juggernaut that
Yeah.
millions of people love worldwide, but he's also an incredibly problematic person.
Yep.
And they go hand in hand, and there's people that, you know, it's struggling with, do you separate the art from the artist, right? Like, how do you go about that? And seeing how there are people that were his right-hand men that he probably treated very well, but if a bad person treats some people well, that doesn't make up for all the bad stuff that they've done. So it's really fascinating. They interview...
Bad people can do good things.
That's-
Good people can make mistakes and do bad.
That's just it. They interview everyone you'd want to interview. Like, they have all the heavy hitters. His family's involved. For as much as we knew a lot of the stuff already, it's rare to see Vince be so open and candid. He is a lunatic, though. Like, you can't just say, I didn't do those bad things, my character did those bad things. And that's what he
yeah.
just hides behind of a lot. So he doesn't come off looking the greatest from time to time. Actually, a lot of the time he doesn't come off
No.
looking great. But it is worth your watch.
It's just worse because then you see all the allegations come out and you go down that rabbit hole and you're like, man, he did what?
Yeah.
And then you think about it, and then you think about what he did, and then you look at the wrestling scenes and you're like, huh. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely adds up. And some of Vince McMahon would be the only person on the planet to have an affair and then write him having an affair into the storyline, and then say, "Well, no, that was my character."
My character was
Oh yeah, your character also named Mr. McMahon. Like, there's a lot of blurring the lines that.
totally to his convenience.
Yeah, but there's some awkward moments in it for sure. So his son, Triple H, or son-in-law, excuse me, now runs the organization.
Yeah.
He seems like he's doing a great job.
And he does, and that's what's so...
It's weird seeing him in that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they call him, like, by his real name now. It's Paul Levesque. Like, he still goes by Triple H, but when he does
off.
press conferences, it's Paul Levesque.
And him in the suit and stuff, it's just always like,
Yeah, but for him to sit down and talk about his father-in-law / his boss, it's a really fine line for him to balance. I think he does a good job, but it's just a lot of people are put in tough spots. Like, imagine if your dad was a monster and you had to sit down and talk about him, but you still love your dad, but you realize your dad's done horrible things.
But are they still close as a family?
You get the sense that not really. Like, yes, I'm sure they get together for holidays and whatnot, but I don't think there's a McMahon family group chat that's firing off right now. And who
Did
knows?
you see the game this weekend?
Yeah, maybe there is.
Dad.
Well, Shane's son, so Vince's grandson, is a college football player for Indiana.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Declan McMahon. He's like a defensive lineman in NCAA.
That seems like a very Shane McMahon son name.
Declan?
Yeah. I don't know.
What is Shane McMahon doing now? Is he still involved?
Kind of, and that's part of the documentary as well, how it's a lot like the show Succession, to be perfectly honest, how one kid wanted the company, but the dad didn't want to give it to that one kid, ends up with the son-in-law, which is exactly like Succession. He's still... Yeah, it really is. He's still around, but they kind of explained in one of the later episodes how Shane was still looking for his dad's approval. Like, he had a comeback.
So he's Kendall.
That's exactly it. Like, he came back 9 years ago, but he came back just to get, like, thrown off a cage by The Undertaker. Like, he wasn't doing anything of substance. So they speculate that he was just trying to get his dad's respect back.
Oh.
Like, I'll come back. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just, can I please come back? So it's a lot of weird family dynamics.
Dad, yeah, get thrown off the top of a cage.
You want to come back, son?
30-foot cage.
It was pretty epic.
Yeah. So it's...
That got me watching for that pay-per-view and stuff, because I wanted to see that.
Yeah.
Was it Undertaker in here?
Undertaker, yeah. So it's worth your watch. I think it's the perfect amount of time. It's like 6 1-hour episodes. Fascinating.
Spency 5 cents he adds, yep, great comparison to Succession, even with the white guy making bad raps.
That's absolutely it. It's watching it, like, yeah, this is so much like, yeah, he wants dad's approval. Dad's kind of a jerk.
I miss Succession.
Yeah, me too.
I haven't rewatched it yet. I feel like I'm soon getting close to where I need the full rewatch and watch all 4 seasons.
One of my favorite things right now is when I'm working, I put my headphones on, but I'll put the music from that show on, and it's just a guy going hard on piano for an hour, but makes you think like
it's
you're in that
hard to
universe.
listen to it to me, because I just then picture the show,
Yeah.
and then I get sad that it's over.
Yeah.
Because it was so good.
It had a great run.
To me, it's up there with Wire and Sopranos as the greatest shows ever.
Yep.
And I don't know when's the next time we're going to see, like, it's going to take a long time to get that. There will be that next show that comes.
There always is, right?
It's Soprano and The Wire happened at around the same time. 20 years later, Succession came. At some point, there's going to be that next show that is going to, in my mind at least, be like, yeah, this is one of the greatest of all time. Just getting there. It
takes a while. And you don't know it till you're a season or 2 into it, right?
Yeah.
It takes a while. Hey, I finally watched Frozen Empire, by the way. Sorry to go off topic.
What did you think?
I enjoyed it.
It was good.
I think I enjoyed Afterlife a little bit more.
Well, Afterlife touched the nostalgia better.
But it was just cool to see.
Is that a new show?
It was the new Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think they've just done a good job of continuing the story.
Yep.
The canon has continued. I don't know where it goes or if it even goes anywhere, but it was good.
I love the aesthetics of Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
right? Like,
yeah.
the cars, the suits, the firehouse. Like, I love
It's very
all
practical.
I love all of that stuff.
Music's also top notch.
Yeah. So it was fine. But yeah, if I were to rank them, for me, it's the original,
Yep.
Afterlife, 2, and then probably Frozen Empire.
I put Frozen Empire ahead of 2, but the same, because Afterlife was amazing.
So I liked actually. So I have seen it.
Thank you.
I thought it was good that the way they continued the story and had some of the original characters come back, so it was like just a flat out continuation.
It makes sense.
What I don't like is when they try to do the shows again, but they don't reference anything from prior shows. Like, if it's as simple as like, oh, this is this guy's son, I would like to see that guy if he's obviously still there with us, because then I feel that makes it a really good continuation of the show, as opposed to just flat out remaking it, where it's just like, well, that's cheesy to me.
Yeah.
Remakes are tough. Man.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of movies that probably should just never be touched.
So what I was going to get into after that comment is like, okay, Gladiator 2. Are you excited to see Gladiator 2?
Not really.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's Ridley Scott coming back to direct makes me feel a little bit better, right? The guy who directed the first Gladiator. So if he's involved, because I don't think he's a real paycheck kind of director.
Yeah.
But I think we've all seen Gladiator. I don't think any of us really expected Gladiator 2 to come out. Like, Gladiator 2 sounds like a gag from The Simpsons. Like you'd see a poster, Gladiator 2.
Yeah.
So I'm a little hesitant, but I am excited to go watch that. I get the sense you're not excited for it.
I don't know how I feel.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer and I'm like, okay, this looks great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, is this a continuation?
It is.
Is this a
it's
completely-
Maximus's son?
It
Is it?
is a continuation.
Okay, so
Is
then
this
that,
Rocky
now I'm
to
going to be
Creed?
Kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like I'd be a little bit
was
more
great.
invested now if it's a continuation as opposed to we're just going to remake this whole thing and go back again. Like,
Let's talk about remaking Back to the Future. Tom Holland was contacted about it. Like, just
you can't
don't.
do that.
Or, like Lord of
Leave
the Rings
it.
has been discussed,
Leave it.
Yeah.
and it's like don't. Well, I think they've wanted to do a Scarface too. Make it
Don't.
in
No,
like the
just-
L.A. I think Leonardo DiCaprio is supposed to be part of it or something.
Just leave it.
There's a handful of movies that are fine the way they are. Like Back to the Future is a perfect movie.
Yeah.
You don't
just
need to
leave
touch
it.
that.
yep, I agree.
Yeah.
But at times, it's like those Hollywood studios are lazy. It's
They are.
True.
They are.
Okay, when like we don't
Money,
even
money.
come up with new ideas. I think Vince Vaughn was on one of those hot ones, and he talked about why there's no new comedies anymore, and it's because no studio wants to take the chance on a comedy. They just want to go with what's easy, what they know is going to pay off, and it's the Lego Movie. Yeah, that's a thing that we can also sell an IP to.
Yep.
We could sell a bunch of things with it, and it's a movie, and yeah, it's not going to be the greatest, but people are going to come watch it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the same as I'll say the radio industry. It used to be a music director picked and curated the music that their station played. Now it's all done by research, and they go to these research. And anytime a music doesn't sound well, it researched well. Yeah, but that's not a feel for it. And there were some great music directors in the past that would run amazing stations. They had a feel for what their listeners would want and what was good music and what isn't good music. And now that's the same with movie studios. Is they don't want to take the chance. Oh, this is a great script. We should go with this. It's look, these two movies sold really well. Let's make a third. Let's have Toy Story 5.
There was a really fascinating book I read called The Big Picture. And it was about the way movie studios have kind of been going in the 21st century and how they would rather spend $200 million on a movie that grosses $800 million, be like a superhero movie. And I love that stuff. I'm in
Sure,
the bag,
yeah.
but there's a lot of them. They'd rather spend $200 million to get $800 than spend $20 million to get $100 million back. Like they don't make mid-budget movies anymore. Everything is either an indie movie that is shot on an iPhone for 40 grand, or it's Avengers Endgame. There's no in between anymore, which some of the best stuff comes from the in between.
Yeah, I agree with
tough.
that. The only thing I don't like with the Marvel
awards would
stuff.
come from.
Yeah.
The only stuff I don't like with the Marvel is that they kind of got complacent.
Yeah.
Right? Like they kind of got into this thing where it's like, we're just going to just keep pumping these movies out because they're making tons of money. Yeah. But then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, who's this character? Not a great story, makes people lose interest. Yep. But the minute you actually go into building something, and part of the reason why, the Infinity Wars and Endgame was so good is because you were invested from the moment it came out, because every movie that they came out with was good, with characters that people knew. And then it came into this one massive product, and you're like, man, that was wicked.
Yeah.
It took me 17 years to get there, but man, that was sick.
Yeah.
But now it's just like, here's a bunch of stuff at a wall, and let's see what stuff sticks.
Yep.
And that's, to me, is a bit frustrating. So, is there the fatigue of Marvel and all these superhero things? I think so. So, I feel like Hollywood needs to kind of shift back to saying, okay, we're going to go with these other movies, 20 million to get 100, so that you can maybe build that back up again.
Yeah. There's not a lot of great original movies anymore. And there are a few that come out every single year, but I look at a movie that's about to turn 10 years old, John Wick. The first John Wick, it cost $20 million, and it looks incredible, right? It's Keanu Reeves with, 25 lines of dialogue. It looks awesome. And that has since
sniping everybody.
Yeah, and that's since spawned a franchise now, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of movies, but there's not really a lot of original movies anymore, which is pretty disappointing. As someone who loves to go to movies, I miss just that old sweet spot.
It used to be such a spectacle, right? Like, oh man, this movie's coming out. We got to go this day. There's lineups, everything. And you're like, this is sweet. Yeah. I feel like that's changed big time since COVID.
Yep,
absolutely.
Sure.
There's very few, I will say Barbie was big. Oppenheimer was massive. Dune 2, I think, was bigger than Dune 1.
But you've just named 3 IP movies. They're all based on something. Oppenheimer's on a book.
Okay,
Barbie,
I see what you're saying.
that's, they're
they're
all
not original screenplays.
Yeah, they're all based on something.
But it's with all due respect to any accountants out there, it's the accountants hurting things because they saw that first couple of movies and saw, look how much we're making.
Yeah.
Let's make this
100%.
again.
Yep.
And then somebody comes, well, we got this idea for the 80 million to make 150.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool. This makes 600 million.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And the accountants keep taking over this world.
Like when Barbie came out, I think Barbie is a Mattel toy. So Mattel wanted to make, I think it was like a Monopoly movie, which I believe is in the works right now in Hollywood.
Probably because they did, what was the one? They did a game movie, which I never understood.
But it was just like
Battleship, I think.
That's not what
Ew.
people liked Barbie for. They didn't like it because it was based on the toy, right? They liked it because it went above and beyond the toy, right? So it's frustrating. IPs unfortunately run Hollywood right now. It's tough.
That's what they're going with.
Yeah.
I didn't care for the Super Mario Brothers movie that came out a couple years ago.
It was Minions.
Yeah.
Like it was a Minion movie with Super Mario.
I won't lie, I enjoyed it because it hit on all the key points of nostalgia. I want to see what number 2 is going to be about. Number 1 had no real plot.
No,
it
it was
went
just
by. They didn't really bring in Yoshi. Was only brought in at the very end.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
think,
It was.
I think that it's like they needed to just hit the nostalgia. And now the second one when it comes out, what is that going to be? You can't hit the nostalgia anymore. You hit all the key points.
They did.
But what would be the point of creating a Super Mario's movie?
Well, they did with John Leguizamo back in 1993. That movie was weird.
Yep.
There's no, like, to me, and you look at it, okay, from video game perspectives, there's been a bunch of movies that come out based off video games. But Super Mario, well, what's the story? You just got to save the princess.
He's with the princess.
He's with the princess.
saving the world in the movie. Spoiler alert.
It's you want to know something? It was
Ultimately, yes.
exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was okay with it.
And it made
But
it
I
a
want a
timeline.
second one, and I want to see what if they can add a little bit more of a story to it.
I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The first ever one that came out in '89 was phenomenal. That was low budget too.
Yeah, it was.
And then they made number 2. And if you watch Secret of the Ooze, they actually don't use their weapons.
Good point. Actually.
And then number 3 was just abysmal, where they go back in time. Then they remade them in the last like 10 to 15 years with Megan Fox. First one, second one, and they've done like a animated version. And I'm just stop it, leave it alone.
The most recent one was not too bad, though. Have you seen that one? The Mutant Mayhem?
I did. I enjoyed that one.
That
With
one's-
Seth Rogen wrote it. That one was actually very
one's
funny. That like restored my faith in the series.
That was fine.
Yeah, I forgot about
My
that.
memory of Secret of the Ooze is anyone that had the VHS tape of that. It had the trailer for Suburban Commando.
Yes,
before,
with Hulk Hogan.
and Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah,
Yes, that's my.
I had that VHS.
I think a lot of people watch.
My mom,
VHS.
we watched those movies so much. My mom had to put book tape around the case to hold it up. Yeah,
The things we used to do
Yeah,
for entertainment.
classic.
Now we could watch it on our phones right now. if we
no
really
big
wanted
deal.
to.
Exactly.
Still not the same. Is it like when we flew to Vegas for Dusty, Eric, and I? Oppenheimer was on there. I'm like, I'm not watching Oppenheimer for the first time on a 7-inch screen.
Yep, that's fair.
I'm not doing it on my phone. No, the
With-
first time I'm watching it is going to be with a nice TV with the
As it should be, right?
I watched it on a flight. I think not the same flight, but going to that trip, fell asleep.
Yeah, that's not
That's
a movie
it's
that
tough.
You
Yeah.
need a screen. For
Yeah,
that.
that's fair.
And TVs have gotten so much better that it's not the worst thing in the world to watch movies at home anymore.
No, that's true.
There's TVs that they're starting to launch that are like see-through, and then like you turn them on, like you could see through them, and it looks really weird. But then when you want to watch TV, like it like changes.
Screen
colors or
pops.
something.
That's cool.
They're really neat. I'm looking forward to when those start coming out and then get really cheap, and then I could buy one because TVs whenever they come out they immediately are like 20 grand, and then after a few years they start going cheaper and cheaper. Let's get to Road Warriors, which is brought to you by AccuSteel Heavy Haul Trailers, custom manufacturing of heavy haul trailers for mining, oil and gas equipment, highway transportation, quality, innovation, integrity. Get on the road with peace of mind for your large loads. AccuSteel.ca. This is the EST Hangout. Iwanyk, Shawn Belle, Marc Majeau, Tom Gazzola with you here. They are not on the road this weekend, but it'll be the Saskatchewan Roughriders on the road as they come to Edmonton to take on the Elks down at Commonwealth Stadium at 5 o'clock. Jay and I will be at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge at 4 o'clock for the Green and Gold kickoff show, but 3 hours before the game, which is 2 o'clock. It is the 2024 Tailgate Chili Cook-Off, the second annual at the Edmonton Elks Tailgate Party, presented by the Elks Herd and the Turf District, also sponsored by us here at Edmonton Sports Talk, and you need a barbecue. I know Scout sent out the message to all the participants yesterday to say that they're in, but go on down to Commonwealth Stadium, enjoy trying some people's chilies and vote on it. And there'll be a couple awards being handed out. So it's the second annual chili cook-off. Last year was a great success, so they brought it back. I think it was earlier though last year, in like early September. This year they've moved it a little October. Perfect weather, I think, for the chili.
Absolutely.
So get on down to the tailgate for the second annual tailgate chili cook-off, brought to you by the Elks Herd Turf District, EST, and You Need a Barbecue. Elks also making the news yesterday that it will not be Trey Ford starting at quarterback. It's MBT's QB1 going into this week, which I will say this, it's not surprising to me because it just, Jarius Jackson's coaching for his job.
Yep.
And
Making the safe play.
His future with the Edmonton Elks, he's now tying it completely to MBT. If he's going to be with this team next year, he's going to need MBT to play well. If MBT loses this week, the Elks are out of the playoffs. Doesn't matter if you go to trade for the next 2 weeks. You're not back if you're Jarius Jackson.
Yeah.
He's tying his future with this team to MBT.
So you say he's coaching for his job, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. But is he though? Like, if they finish,
If they make the playoffs,
but you think that puts him in the pole position to come back? Like, don't you feel like this is a good opportunity to start fresh?
I do. I like the idea of a fresh. But if you take over a team at 0-5, I believe it was, and you go and win, because I think you'll take 3 wins. I don't think the Elks could get in with 2 wins. I think it's going to have to be 3. You get to an 8-win season, you make the playoffs. I think that's worth a 2-year contract.
That's fair. Yep.
You give him 1 year. If it doesn't go well after that 1 year, it's a little bit easier to move on. We've seen that in sports enough.
For sure.
I wouldn't lock him into a 4 or 5 year deal. But I think if you do get this team to the playoffs, there is something to be said for that.
Fair.
I didn't think I would ever say that this season necessarily when he took over, but for a large part they did look better.
That's fair.
So I do think if they make the playoffs, it's hard to, like what I said with the Raiders. Yeah, the interim coach come in, you got to the playoffs, then you move on for the next one. I think it's the same thing. I think you kind of owe it to the players and him to try to build off of that 8-win season as opposed to just completely starting from scratch again.
No, you do have to take that into consideration as well, because you're not going to roll over the entire roster, right? You're going to bring back a lot of those guys, and listen, from afar, it seems like the players are playing for Jarius, so who knows? It's going to be an interesting offseason, though.
But if they miss the playoffs, to me, it's...
Yeah.
I can see G-Roy coming back, but him go and find his own head coach. I know he's close with Jarius, but I could see maybe that possibly being a way to go with this. I don't know how Jarius would feel about it. Maybe he just goes back to OC.
So much awkwardness, potential awkwardness. Well, I feel like there's probably awkwardness already right now, especially with the way they're going back and forth between Trey Ford and Jarius Jackson, and MBT with Jarius Jackson calling the shots there. But say, hypotheticals, say they win these next 3 and do sneak into the playoffs, right? I don't think MBT's coming back next year. And you want Trey Ford to be the quarterback of the future. You do all this to get into the postseason and of the slimmest of margins to do it. And then next year, you're hoping that Trey Ford is your guy from the start. Wouldn't that be awkward? Wouldn't there be animosity there?
Wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, but it kind of was going to the question that I was going to ask, is that based on what you've seen from the coaches, not from the players, the coaches.
Yeah.
Does this not maybe speak more to maybe the ability of Trey Ford?
No.
Are you sure though?
Are you saying lack of ability?
Well, okay, so we've talked about this multiple times on the Hangout and other shows, obviously, where it's you need to give Trey Ford the chance because he can run. Their O-line is not great at protecting for a long time, so we got to get on the move to extend plays, and he has the ability to do that. He has the ability to throw the long ball, which now stretches the defense a little bit more, but we keep going back to MBT.
It's because I stand by still that this coaching staff, for whatever reason, has issues with Trey Ford, and they don't like Trey Ford. They are part of the Chris Jones in this. The only thing I could give this coaching staff credit for, and they actually trusted Trey Ford, was the fact that they gave him the job after he came back from injury. Yeah. Beyond that, every other time, it looks like they've always taken the shots. Like you go back to MBT's game against Hamilton, at half, I think most people are like, yeah, you got to make a change. This is awful. Mm-hmm. And they stuck with MBT for one more quarter.
I had to ask Jarius if he was getting Trey in there, and he said no. MBT was.
And so
that's why I'm asking this question.
Now he has one bad game, Trey, and he gets pulled in that game. MBT doesn't get pulled last week. Now, I'm not as upset about that one because it's like you can't just keep throwing Trey to the wolves in that sense. Yeah. But they didn't pull MBT. MBT has a bad game, and they're going back to MBT.
That's my question.
And we haven't seen Trey get as good enough of a chance to have a long runway of the job to see what he can do. And he's a young guy, and he still needs to develop. He's not a perfect quarterback. There's a lot of improvement that still needs to come. The only time we've seen him have a long stretch with the job where he got to keep it and didn't lose it by play. Now, he's lost it by injury and stuff, and he's got to be better at protecting himself, but was last year. And the only reason Chris Jones and Jarius Jackson and this coaching staff had a job this year was because of Trey Ford last year. And they immediately turned on him.
Yeah. So
they don't. There's something that they don't like about him, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So I think when I just watching him play, I feel like he has all the tools. But then I also know sports very well, and coaches aren't playing guys that they don't trust. So there's something there that I'm seeing that they don't want to play this guy. And I don't know if it's as simple as saying, well, it's a veteran quarterback versus a young guy, because Trey Ford's had a lot of games. He's played a lot of games. His sample size is not massive, but it's big enough to now determine the fact of, can this guy help my team win more than this guy? And that's the problem that I'm seeing. And once again, I'm sitting here saying, like, I think he has the tools and I think he has the ability to be that guy, especially based off what the CFL game is. But I just question from the other side of it saying, well, why do they keep going back to MBT?
Because they don't like Trey, and that there's that personal dislike.
Is it a personal dislike, or is it a fact of
that has
there's
been
something
in the
there?
From the start.
I talked to, we're doing a charity hockey game. Eddie Steele played in it. And I was like, Eddie, and this was last year. I'm like, Eddie, why don't they just give Trey the job? And he goes, you know what, Tom? The one thing that comes to mind is he's erratic and he goes off script too much. And that can make it frustrating for guys.
Yeah, and then that was the knock on him going into this season. And then when he took over, he wasn't erratic. Until, like, he came back in the Winnipeg game, he was erratic. He didn't do what he was doing prior.
That was bad. Winnipeg's a wagon right now,
has
though.
taken a lot of shots at Trey over Twitter this season. He's not exactly the big Trey guy and stuff.
Okay.
You look at this game against Saskatchewan when he came in. He stood in his pocket, and I'll point to there was the Tevin Jones touchdown where he stayed in his pocket and he stepped forward in the pocket to make that throw. He had a great arm. And through the stretch of that little period of time that we saw from Hamilton on, he stayed in the pocket and he was evolving as a quarterback. When he came out against Winnipeg, he didn't do that. No. And Jay and I were watching the game. There was a moment where we saw the O-line protecting. There was a pocket, and for some reason Trey left. And that was his problem, and that's when the Bombers got to him. But he needs time to develop away from that, and you can't do that if you don't play. Like, I'm tired. Like, I don't want this. Well, he needs more practice time. There's only so much you could do in practice. He needs game time. Mm-hmm. And there comes a point where it's okay. We could sit there and be like, well, we're still like, we should have had an answer on Trey Ford this year, but we didn't get that because he didn't play enough. And that's what this season was supposed to be. So I still go back to, though, this coaching staff that they were with Chris Jones, and they, for some reason, do not like Trey Ford. They don't want to go with Trey Ford. And until they are absolutely forced to do it, that's the only time they do it. And here, they're now probably Jarius Jackson. Well, I don't know why you wouldn't go to Trey Ford this week. Like, MBT did not look good last week, and Trey has already beaten Saskatchewan.
Well, that's my point, and that's why I keep going back to clearly there's something behind the scenes, and whether that's he's very erratic and the coaches can't necessarily trust him. Like, to me, there's something going on behind the scenes, and I'm not sure it's just a pure dislike of the player. I think there's something that the coaching staff, whether it's Jackson, whether it was Jones, that they've clearly pinpointed saying, we don't like this and this doesn't help us win.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how you can't pinpoint that with MBT and go, this guy doesn't help us, they can't win.
But they probably feel that at MBT, with his veteran side, that maybe that one intangible, they feel that actually works for their game, as opposed to, maybe it's the instant, I'm gone, I got to panic, and I got to now try to make something happen. I don't know what that looks like and what that is. I'm just saying there's clearly something that the coaches are saying, this doesn't work for us. Yep. And we don't want it in our lineup right now, because that's the problem.
But Chris Jones didn't want that, and he doesn't have a job with this team anymore.
Yep.
Jarius Jackson might not have a job with this team anymore by going this way. And look, he might not have a job with this team if he went with Trey Ford this weekend and played Trey the rest of the way. He still might not have a job. But in the end, it comes down to, like, yeah, sure, Jerry's could go with MBT. He might not be a head coach again in the Canadian Football League next season.
Yeah, but coaches get hired to get fired, and they want to go.
They're going to go somewhere else. And a part of this is also just straight up arrogance that could be. Yeah. Chris Jones, what hurt him in Edmonton, to me, in the end, you look back, there was an arrogance of Chris Jones.
Oh, for sure.
Like, that's what was the downfall of Chris Jones. What would this season have been if they had, I'm not saying started Trey Ford. What would this season have been if through those first 5-6 weeks of the season, they just used some packages with Trey Ford and used the weapons that they had? Went with MBT as their starting quarterback, but found ways to use the abilities of Trey Ford, not in a gimmicky way. And the people are like the Eddie Stills out there will criticize and be like, oh, he had a chance to go on. Chris Jones said he had a chance to go on. That was for gimmicky stuff. Have actually, like, him come in as an actual quarterback and build a package around him, which, like, Jay and I were both in agreement. Like, Jay was happy with the MBT signing. I was not. But we both agreed on the fact that how do you not mix in Trey Ford? What would this season have been had they just done that? But
name another team that would do that.
Well, I can name that in other times. I could go back to the Elks of the earlies, of the 80s, and go, you did that with Wilkie and Moon.
Sure,
but now,
that was Moon.
I could go. I could go with, at the very least, now it's not to the same level fully, but it was Michael Riley and it was Jordan Lynch in Edmonton in 14-15. They did that.
Sure, Mike Riley was a flat-out stud. The other guy was
so then why did they bring in MBT?
A definite. I can just run this thing every single time.
And he did in the Grey Cup game for a huge touchdown.
Exactly. But if you're looking at the opposite way, you've got Trey Ford where it's like, I don't want him doing a quarterback sneak because he's not big enough for that. His body's not able to sustain those hits in that type of play. So for a Ford, you want him to be able to, utilize his arm or his legs, which is great. But at the same time, you either need to play him all the time or you don't play him at all, because to me, you put him in for a gimmick play. And I agree with you. I agree with you on this point, is that gimmicks, he doesn't need to come in. But if you now build a package where he's legitimately the quarterback, why not just play him?
Because I could say the argument for that would be is you're just trying to develop him and you're not ready for him to be the guy the entire game. But I think that that's where I'll go with Chris Jones. And Jarris was part of that coaching staff. He wasn't the OC, but he was been part of that coaching staff. They did it with with two quarterbacks. The one thing I didn't like about that Jordan Lynch was you knew he was always going to run.
Yeah.
With Trey, you would never have, you could actually have him throw occasionally because you could trust him for that.
Yep.
And what would have that done to this offense? It could have happened. You could have tried to do something. They chose not to.
How many plays are you talking about?
I would say anywhere between 3 and 4 drives you can mix it in.
Then it wouldn't have really done anything to the offense.
Of course it could have.
Because if he has success in those 3 or 4 drives, then you want to keep him in so that he has the ability to continue doing that.
But if MBT is also still playing well, you're keeping MBT because he's still doing well.
Yeah, so then it just becomes, MBT's playing good. Why do I want to take him out when I can just ride the hot hand?
Because one of the things that could help both is if you had a defense go out there and they have to prepare each week for two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They have to legitimately prepare for the fact that 2 quarterbacks go out there, 2 different quarterbacks can go out there, and both quarterbacks could beat them in different ways. And that keeping them off the track. And imagine that one game where they're preparing for 2 quarterbacks and you choose, you want to know something? We're not going to use Trey today. We're just going to go MBT.
Well, so now you're basically wanting to use them for the games behind the scenes.
But also
3 or 4 drives is not enough, then, in my opinion. If that's what you want to try to do.
3 or 4 drives. Well, the teams only get 11, 12 drives. It's not a lot.
Fair, but 3 is not enough for a guy to come in and feel comfortable. So imagine sitting on the bench for, quarter and a half, and then you now have to go in and be like, hey, I got to go run this drive. But these guys are all they're feeling it, they're doing their thing, and you're coming in cold. So there's a bit of a timing thing as well that also happens. It's like being a 4th liner in hockey as a skill guy, which they used to do, which was crazy.
Yeah.
They'd pull guys up from the minors that were a point per game player. They'd stick them on the 4th line next to a tough guy, play him for 3 minutes and be like, hey, man, you better produce. Man, you didn't produce. You got to go back down. So it's very counterproductive.
On the flip side, I could argue that Trey would be fresher throughout an entire game. So in that third quarter or early fourth quarter, I throw him out there. That defense has played already 40, a majority of a football game, and he might be able to take advantage of a little more tired defense.
Fair. The only way
if he's doing it all year, Trey, in that way, he might be used to knowing when.
But then I would have him run because his arm's not warm and all that stuff. I'd put him in and I would say, okay, sure, let's do that. But now this is going to be a designed bootleg where I'm going to run, or it's going to be, it's going to be an RPO. Essentially, what it's going to be. Right, like it's going to be very, very calculated on how I use him, but it's going to be I'm either giving this to the running back or I'm running it. So actually, it wouldn't even be an RPO. It would be it's either you or you, but we're running this ball.
It's a quarterback. You'd have the confidence. I think you'd have the confidence.
Yeah.
I could go.
I agree with you on that.
And I would go, and I would want that still as an option.
Yeah.
And just what could have the Elks season had been had we done that from the start of the year, or seen them do that from the start of the year.
It's a different situation, but I remember the game that the 49ers unleashed Colin Kaepernick. It was against the Jets, and Alex Smith played the first quarter and a half, and it was exactly what Shawn was just explaining. The first play of Kaepernick was, I believe, a play action. He ran right and then ran for like an 80-yard touchdown. No one was expecting it.
Yeah.
But it was the same, we're going to wait and make a calculated decision as to when bring this guy in. And, for the next 2.5 years, Cap had a pretty good run with the 49ers. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a special run.
He's a fourth down stop. Oh, you don't care, but they were a fourth down stop away from winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They were.
Like when he was moving, the first 10 yards were just like 2 strides.
Yeah.
It was nothing to him.
He was unbelievable
to get those. He was just such an incredible runner.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess we'll see. We'll see.
And I do think that Trey Ford should be in though. Like I actually think his tool set for the CFL is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, I would say the Far Ontology had a report last week that the Elks are closing in on a president. There have already been some discussions with Trey's camp of a potential extension. Mm-hmm. There were though also discussions with G. Roy and Jarius of potentially extending them. I'll be intrigued to see what moves on with all of that.
Do we know who the president would be? Like, has it been? I wonder, is it going to be a name we've heard of before, or is it going to be someone straight out of left field?
It's a really good question.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. My vote's for Sean Fleming. I don't know if they can get Sean Fleming. Rod Connip is a former alum who's big in business in the local area. Yep. I don't know if you can get him. I don't know if this person's going to be connected to the Elks directly, or Larry Thompson's just a big fan. Is he going to find someone that he knows through business that is also connected to this team in that way?
Dave Jameson.
I was going to say Bob Stauffer, but Dave Jameson.
I don't know.
How do we know Bob's not the GM or president of this team already? He did make an appearance in the press box this season at Commonwealth.
He was also at a Golden Bear game, so he was getting some talent.
He was also at lunch yesterday, Joey, downtown.
He's everywhere.
The man is a busy boy.
MCTV podcast. What can people expect coming up?
It's awesome.
UNCG.
We have so much stuff to talk about right now. So The Penguin right now is airing. We're doing weekly recaps about that. There's a Marvel series right now, Agatha All Along. We were chatting about the Tragically Hip when you said Whale and the Wolf. Corey is a huge Tragically Hip fan, my co-host. And he just inhaled that documentary that's on Prime Video. So we basically, now that we're in kind of the season, there's good movies and stuff coming out. Daily or weekly movie and television recaps and stuff we're looking forward to. It's fun every Monday night.
Hello Hockey this Saturday. You guys are working on. Dave Pagnotta will be on the show.
Jesse Kirschenbaum, founder of Be Clutch. It's a hockey apparel company. And then, do we have Cassie?
No, not yet. So just waiting to hear back from our friend down south there. He's going to let us know whether we can get one of the 2 big boys, which would be great. And if not, then we'll have our good friend, or at least one of my good friends, former female commentator on Sportsnet.
Do you want to say her name?
No, I don't. Because I don't want to give it out, because what if we get the other one?
All right.
Enjoy Michigan.
I will.
And Washington. You boys have a great Hello Hockey. Coming up next here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton Sports. It is the Lock Shop. It is Dusty and Huss. Then it is the Oil Stream. Tommy and Dusty in the EST afternoons, and Reed Wilkins show with Jay Milne all till 6 o'clock. And then tonight we're doing our preseason GCL Diesel Oil Stream pregame show. Yourself and Hernan Salas, 7 o'clock today. What's that look for?
Do you think we can get a short sponsor
shorts.
Yeah, shorts.
Stop it.
So then Tommy can get new shorts that actually fit him.
Oh my God.
There's the lock up here at Edmonton Sports Talk. Don't go anywhere. That coming up in just a few minutes. Thanks for tuning in to the Hangout on behalf of Shawn, Majeau, Gazzola, Matt. Have a great day.
Let's go. There you go, right in front of the camera.
First-time guest, long-time listener, fan of the original draft commissioner.
Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. The difference is clear. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Zola with here. Joining us today